Hey now, it's your boy PSA Sitch here with the rare Thursday stream.
Yeah, awesome.
What's up? With everyone's favorite actual writer on the finale of She-Hulk, Adam Friended.
Yeah, you're right. That was me. I jumped in there. I'm like, hey, screw these people. I know how to screw this show up.
There were things I was prepared to talk about today, and I'll be honest, everything I was prepared to talk about today, my brain is going to be completely rattled because I made the mistake of watching the finale of She-Hulk right before the stream started.
Well, I told you you had to watch it because I watched it this morning. It was just, what the fuck is happening here?
It's just, I never, so I thought that the worst finale we were going to see this year was going to be Ring of Power, easily.
Yeah, yeah.
And this just blew me away. I've never seen anything like this. This is one of the worst season finales I've ever seen in my entire life. It's baffling. It's baffling to me that something this bad could be written and someone could look at this script and say, yeah, this is a good idea. Let's do this.
It's questionable that you can even really call it a finale. I mean, the word
Hmm.
finale doesn't really seem to fit here. Yeah,
So it's like a fuck finale because they said
yeah,
fuck it. Just they got to the end of the show, they said, fuck it.
yeah. What happens when you're going to Disneyland and then you
Hmm.
die on the way? It's like unexpected death,
No, it's
right?
like no, it's like you know in the Chevy Chase vacation movie
Yes, totally. Wally
that
World.
yes, the entire movie. I know that like no one under the age of 30
I
knows what I'm
know.
talking
What
about.
are you doing?
There's this famous Chevy Chase movie where him and his family are trying to get to Disney World essentially.
Hmm.
And finally, the joke is at the end of the movie, they get there and it's closed.
Yes.
And they essentially did that with the story of She-Hulk.
Yes.
Everything that She-Hulk has been building up to, the entire like plot that has been going throughout the whole end of the whole series, they get it to it, and then basically the writers admit that everything they've been building and working upon is so stupid that they just say, "Well, we're gonna throw it all away and pretend it didn't happen."
Yep.
Like they literally wrote themselves into a corner so bad that they had to use a meta trick of She-Hulk talking to the writing room to be like, "Hey, what you guys are writing is so stupid. Can you just stop it?" And they said, "Okay, we don't know how to end the season, so yeah, we'll just stop it."
It's so weird to me because watching movies or shows is a linear process, but
Hmm.
writing them is not. Sitch. I mean,
Yeah.
you can start at the end. You can go, hey, let's think up a great ending, right? So,
Right.
and then go in and pack in as many setups as possible to get to that ending. Evidently, the writers of She-Hulk have not come to this realization yet.
Well, here I'm curious if did the writers of She-Hulk like write themselves into this mystery box corner where they had no idea where it was going, or was this actually planned from the beginning?
Oh my god,
It's because it's hard to imagine
I
that
don't know
this
if I
was
can
planned from the
handle
beginning.
that.
Like, if this was planned from the beginning, then they had to be like the dumbest people on the planet to do this.
I feel as though we're dealing with some real brainlets here, to be honest with you. Anyway, what do we talk? Enough media stuff. People are here for politics. That
Mm,
they want our wisdom on
right.
political
That's true.
stuff.
That's true.
And
No one cares about She-Hulk, yes.
John Stewart.
Well, wait, before we get into Jon Stewart, let's talk about the news that came out today.
Okay, so we're going to cover John Stewart, and we're going to cover
The news.
the
Oh, wait,
news. The news of today is the
right,
Biden
right.
and
Well, I want you, Adam, and I want the chat to go on a mental exercise with me.
mhm. Okay,
Okay. I want you to all imagine a hypothetical universe
okay,
where in the middle of the last election, so, it's 2020, we're going back in time to 2020. In the middle of the last election, Joe Biden
hmm
dies
hmm
before the election actually takes place.
really,
Okay. Joe
Joe
Biden dies.
Joe
Yes.
Brandon.
Joe Brandon dies. Yes.
Okay,
Okay. I want you to imagine that. I want everyone in chat to imagine this. Okay. And imagine through amazing circumstances, you become the president of the United States instead of Joe Biden.
I do.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
You. You and every person in chat listening, I want you to imagine that you are the president. Okay.
Okay. I'm the president.
Right.
I'm the president, Milk Chen. Milk
Okay.
Chen. It's me, the president.
So imagine that you are the president. You have this whole situation with Russia and Ukraine that's
Mm-hmm.
happening,
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, um, and you're trying to clamp down on Russia, you're trying to slap Russia around. You just got out of COVID. You have all this supply chain disruption, and you have a lot of the problems is that oil production, hasn't ramped up necessarily to meet, what it was post COVID. And then once it finally kind of does get back up to that, you have the whole war with Ukraine and Russia. So then a massive chunk of oil is basically removed from the market. Okay.
Ouch.
So
Those
you, the president,
OPEC
right,
meanies.
right. So you, the president, uh, then someone says I would file an executive order to deport Adam.
Don't read the chat. Come on, those people are mean to me. How dare you?
There you go.
You can't deport me. I'm an
My first,
American.
my first decree: furries are illegal. Nuke the Kremlin. See, we have a lot of good ideas here.
Oh, yeah. I don't
Right.
know if I'd go with nuke the Kremlin, but
There you go. No, so okay. So you're the president.
Mhm.
All the situation that's happening now is happening. So you go to Saudi Arabia, the
Right.
country in which you have been basically supplying with weapons to fight in Yemen for years, the country that you basically gave a free pass to chop up a journalist into tiny pieces and put into bags.
I gave him a free pass. I mean, well,
Well,
that was kind of
America
a
did.
Trump thing.
America did.
Well, the
America did.
Democrats were like, "How dare you? Oh my
Yeah, but it
God!
doesn't
How
matter
dare
because
Trump give him a pass?"
when you're the president, you're basically assuming all the actions of America that have happened in the past.
Okay.
Okay. So America gave a pass to Saudi Arabia for doing that. America's given Saudi Arabia a pass for doing lots of things. America has supported Saudi Arabia in doing a lot of things. And so you go to Saudi Arabia and you say, hey, because of our relationship, because of all things we've done for you, can you increase oil production to
Hmm.
offset this war with Russia? And Saudi Arabia says, go fuck yourself. Okay.
What?
They say, go fuck yourself.
I'm
And
not.
then,
I'm not happy about that.
and then you find out that not only did Saudi Arabia tell you to go fuck yourself, Saudi Arabia supposedly was one of the primary influences in all of OPEC trying to get all the rest of the OPEC countries to not increase oil production.
Wow.
Okay. Which would lower the price of oil, obviously.
Hmm.
Okay. What do you do, Adam? And what do you, chat, do? What do you do if you're the president of the situation and after all you've done for Saudi Arabia, they basically spit in your face?
Saudi Arabia. Well, do we have any leverage over these Saudi Arabians? What do we? I guess we are
Mm-hmm.
giving them weapons, right?
Right.
So we pulled our weapons contracts immediately, but our weapons manufacturers are going to be pretty upset about that because
Sure.
obviously they want some cash rolling in.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. Yeah, what can we really do? Kind of have us over a barrel,
But you would do something, right?
an oil barrel.
You're not going to just stand around and you're not going to take off your pants and bend over, right? You're going to do something.
I'm not gonna
You're not going
wag.
to help them anymore, right?
I'm not gonna wag my finger in their face.
Are you going to just do nothing? I mean, you're not going to stop selling them weapons. You're not going to use all of your power to basically, you know, get retribution for them
Yeah, hell
against them.
yeah, hell
Okay.
yeah. I'm
Okay.
gonna I'm gonna smack them around however I can. I don't necessarily know what kind of leverage we have over them.
Gotcha.
You know,
No, that's fine. Yeah, I don't expect
I
you or
like
the
to have some leverage over people.
right.
So when they come to
Okay.
me and fuck me up, well, technically the forgiving of the not making a big deal about what they did to this journalist is you kind of trying to build some leverage over them. You know,
Hmm.
to say, hey, we're gonna do a solid here for you. You do a solid for us in the future. But obviously that didn't work out that way.
Right.
So next
Everyone.
time a
Mhm.
journalist gets cut up, I mean, I
Right.
guess we're gonna make a big deal about it. But even what can we really even do then?
Right.
I did it take place in the American embassy?
No. Or maybe, I don't remember.
How
But
about
I don't
this?
think so.
We go into the American embassy and we play rap music very loud late at night for like weeks at a time.
Uh-huh.
Are we
The
getting
most
somewhere?
offensive rap music. Yeah, you just
Yes.
blast it over
Yeah.
the speakers. Yeah, that's a great idea, Adam.
We get
Yeah.
a giant projector, okay?
Mm,
And we project hardcore pornography
gotcha.
into the streets of
Gotcha.
Saudi Arabia.
So uh before I continue with what you're saying,
Hmm.
for all the people that keep saying we're going to drill more oil in America, I will address that. Okay. But that's somewhat irrelevant to what I'm talking about right now.
Do you have an
So,
idea here?
well, no, I'm not. I don't
What?
expect you, Adam, or anyone in the chat to understand all of the specific things that America is doing to have leverage over Saudi Arabia.
I mean, you could at least bust out the Jewish space lasers, Sitch.
I
What the
could.
fuck?
All I'm asking you is generally, trying to ask you a very general question,
Hmm.
which is that
Oh,
should
I'm
we
getting even.
Should
Don't
okay, there
look.
you go. That's all I'm asking. Should we as Americans pull down our pants and basically let ourselves get reamed by Saudi Arabia for all the support we've given them, or should we act against them?
Retribution is my middle name, okay?
Gotcha.
I'm
Okay.
justice. I'm
There
seeking
you go.
justice here.
There you go. Okay. No, I
Yeah.
agree completely. I agree completely. Okay. So you, Adam, president, and you, chat president, say, hey, and people have been saying this for months and months and months, saying Saudi Arabia's not helping us. We're helping Saudi Arabia. They're not helping us. We need to act against them. Joe Biden is weak because he's letting Saudi Arabia take advantage of this. This
Hmm.
was said for months and months and months and months and months, including by me on this very
Oh,
stream.
now we know why this story is here at all.
Right,
Because Sitch wants to take an "I told you so" laugh.
right. So I was saying this for months. Everyone was saying this for months, and everyone should be saying this for months. It looks incredibly pathetically weak if we do all this stuff for Saudi Arabia, and then when we ask Saudi Arabia to do something for us, we say, "Oh, they said no. I guess we're just gonna keep helping them, and we'll have a completely one-sided relationship."
Yeah.
So
This is starting to sound like a cuck movie here.
it,
Like
it is.
you
It
just
is.
go sit in the corner,
Right.
America,
Exactly. You're
while
right.
my boyfriend comes over.
Right. So Adam decides as president, and you, chat as president, decide that you are going to get some sort of retribution on Saudi Arabia. Okay.
Right.
You've
Yes.
been using the carrot, and now it's time to whip out the stick.
Yep.
Right. And so the second you whip out the stick on Saudi Arabia,
Hmm.
whether you're a Republican or Democrat, um, the other party in America then turns around and says, hey, you're only doing this, you're trying to enact some sort of quid pro quo against Saudi Arabia to help yourself in the midterm. You are exactly the same as Donald Trump with Ukraine.
Well, I want to say I would tell that person to fuck off like immediately. Why would you put up with
Okay.
that?
Mm-hmm.
Who's doing this? Name names. I wanted. I'm going to Twitter right now. I need to call these people out. What
This
dipshit
is
is doing this?
this is what the right-wing internet pundits are pushing right now, right at this very moment, right at
Why?
this day.
Oh man,
Because everything has to be seen.
it's the
This is a good
contrary.
example of two things. This is a great example of two things. It's a great example of how people allow tribalism to basically still people are willing to sacrifice their own country, the good of their own country for tribalism.
Yes.
Okay. Because it's for the good of our own country that America is not taken advantage of by Saudi Arabia. And yet we can't even unify around that. Okay. We can't eat. Someone is taking massive advantage of us, and we as a country can't even unite against us and say, hey, fuck you. We have to divide that into some kind of insane tribal partisanship. That's how lost we are right now in the current political situation.
So are you saying right wingers are out there supporting Saudi Arabia at the
Well,
moment?
they're not supporting Saudi Arabia, but they're weakening the country's unified position against Saudi Arabia
Right, because the midterm elections are
because of the
a
midterm
month
elections.
away and they
Right.
want to just whinge about it.
Exactly. So like that's the
Yeah, it
first thing.
sucks. That
The second
sucks.
thing is, and a lot of people were saying this to me on Twitter, this shows the power of brainwashing. It shows the power of brainwashing
Hmm.
because someone puts out a narrative. Okay. They say, hey, this is the same as Trump and Ukraine, which doesn't even make sense because, as we just ran through with this hypothetical, Biden trying to, Biden, enacting some sort of retribution against Saudi Arabia is something every person who would be president would do in that situation unless they're a cuck.
Right.
That's something every person would do unless they're a cuck
And should do,
and
obviously.
should do. And we all agree should do. And yet, and yet, because of tribal partisanship politics, people want to twist it around and say this somehow is the same as the Trump demanding that Ukraine announce investigations into Joe Biden in order to get money that legally that we were always supposed to give them, which was directly investigating his primary political opponent. People want to say that the quid pro quo of a country doing something for its country's benefit is the same as a president doing something for his own personal benefit. And
People,
people have fallen for that narrative hook, line, and sinker.
yeah, people don't know the facts around the Trump phone call. It's really discouraging every time I talk to people about it because they really do not know. They just don't know the facts.
Well, it's not even really about the facts. It's just about everyone knows on some level that these two situations are very different. And yet we sort of lie to ourselves and pretend and trick ourselves into saying that they're the same. And that's the power of brainwashing. If you heard that narrative, now you can come out of this. You can break out of the matrix. Okay. But
I
if you heard
can.
that narrative and at first bought into it, it shows that you are susceptible to brainwashing. And we're all born susceptible to brainwashing. I was brainwashed for most of my life too. But that's part of the moment is realizing that you've been brainwashed and waking up out of it and saying, wait a minute, this is just partisan politics. It doesn't make any sense. Let's think about this logically.
Yeah, you can't really unify during an election cycle, which really sucks. But
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what would be a potential solution going forward if there's anything like this. I mean, I guess people are going to politicize anything that happens. It's a shame that we can't agree to not politicize something that's in the nation's interest because this would be the perfect example of
Right.
where you could do something like that. You could say, listen, we should be unified on this, so let's agree to keep it out of the election cycle. Let's beat each other up on things we actually disagree on instead of making shit up to disagree on. So
Well, you
so
could,
much
I
of
mean,
it's made up.
here's the thing too. You could still make it partisan to make it not as bad. You can make it, the whole point of competition is it's supposed to make things stronger, not weaker. Okay. So like if the Republicans came out and said Joe Biden is not hard enough on Saudi Arabia, he's taking too long to respond to Saudi Arabia, like, I'd be like, okay, that's partisan, but at least it's still pushing the country in the right direction.
Yeah, that would be
You know,
great.
it's still that's I feel like that's the way a lot of the competition used to be. It would be like, oh, you're not doing enough, you know, like, yeah, we agree with the base thought here that you want to, act against Saudi Arabia, but you're not doing it right. You're not doing it hard enough. You're not doing it fast enough, blah, 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 blah. Because at least that's still pushing things in the right direction. But instead, now we're in this like nightmare scenario of, oh, we're just going to take literally the opposite position of anything that any side politically does, regardless of what it is.
Well, it seems like both parties are trying to pin corruption to the other party. And that's
Mm-hmm.
one of the reasons why they've gone with this narrative, obviously, because they want to say this is corrupt what Biden is doing, which is really weird because I mean, weren't they saying when Trump did it, it wasn't corrupt, but now it is corrupt?
Right. That is what they're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. So when Trump did it, and it was everyone was like, that's not quid pro quo. You can't even really have a. I mean, this is how foreign policy works. Obviously, all that
Uh,
was just bullshit.
Someone says, I don't know the timeline of the phone call. Biden wasn't running when Trump made the phone call. You, sir, are incorrect.
hmm
Donald Trump has said publicly at the and during that time period that he always thought, and Scott Adams, who had a personal conversation with Trump and always just repeats this every chance he could get, Trump always thought that Joe Biden was going to be his number one competitor. So you were wrong. You were completely wrong.
Yes.
That was always Trump's conceptualization of things.
Don't let the facts get in the way, though,
And
guys.
how exactly is I want someone to explain to me how the president looking at a country that's taking advantage of us and saying, hey, we're going to do something because you're taking advantage of us. How is that wrong at all? How is that a bad thing in your interest as an American? Or are you advocating that we should basically just cuck ourselves to Saudi Arabia? Because that appears to be what people on the right are advocating for in order to try to get an own against Joe Biden.
Yeah. Sad.
This,
What is Joe
if you think that
Biden wanting
if
to
you think
do? Do you know?
if you think that what I'm talking about is whataboutism, you don't understand the context of the situation. I mean, I guess it's whataboutism from the Republican perspective. The entire thing is Joe Biden is doing this thing against Saudi Arabia, and right-wing pundits on the internet are now saying, yes, but what about this situation? What about this situation with Trump? So yeah, it is totally whataboutism from their perspective.
Biden faces pressure to push Saudi Arabia after OPEC cuts oil production. Biden vows to punish Saudi Arabia, but struggles to calibrate response. Well,
Mm-hmm.
that's pretty bad. If that's Yahoo News.
He didn't
Biden,
actually do anything. He requested a monthly break. So what happened was, oh, I got a text message.
President Biden, U.S. will take action in response to Saudi Arabia-led decision to cut oil production. Yeah, gas prices are really gonna hurt the Democrats in the midterm elections. So Biden vows consequences for Saudi Arabia after OPEC plus. Saudi Arabia
So
is not a U.S. ally. Biden should stop treating it as one. Oh, that's
right.
foreign policy.
So this shows how the tribalism works. Okay. So we have the US says to Saudi Arabia, hey, um, you're raising oil prices because of the conflict that's going on, or oil prices are raising because of conflict in Russia and Ukraine. Things in Russia and Ukraine are changing rapidly, currently changing now. You know, don't make any decision to not increase oil production until your next OPEC meeting. And then that gets translated into, oh, they're just doing this for the midterms, right? That's how it gets translated to, which obviously that's happening to some extent, obviously. But the idea here that's being pushed by people is that they honestly think that the Biden administration is basically going to say to Saudi Arabia, hey, you know, you can cuck us, just don't cuck us till after the midterm. That's what you're saying you think would actually happen, which is insane. It would not actually happen, but because that would just completely destroy his entire presidency after that. And what would be the benefit? What would Joe Biden and the Biden administration benefit from doing that at all?
So, do you think this is going to be a big story? It seems like it's just going to
I
be
just,
like a
to me,
one-day news cycle.
to me, it's just so fascinating the amount of people that fall for this brainwashing
Why?
of comparing this to the Trump phone call. And no one can give, and a lot of people in the chat have fallen for this brainwashing, and none of them can give any coherent idea about
Mhm.
how it's even remotely similar.
You can't fight the brainwashing. Sitch. You gotta
I
you
guess,
gotta
but that's what's sad
realize
about it.
that people much people want to be brainwashed.
Well,
They
that's the
do.
truth. It's like hypnosis. You can only be hypnotized if you want to be hypnotized.
Yeah, never really was a person to get hypnotized. So Saudis say president wanted to delay oil production cut until after election, risking higher gas prices. So Biden's on the phone begging them, please don't screw me in the midterms here.
Hmm.
I mean, we really should figure out a way to get Saudi Arabia off our back.
Of course. But see, that's the problem. They say, "Oh, we should all be unified against fighting against Saudi Arabia at this time." And it's like, no, it has to be put through the lens of, well, wait a minute. You guys attacked Trump when he tried to force a country to do something. So it's the same thing. Oh my God.
Nobody knows the details of that call.
How is it? How is
There's two
what
sets of
Biden's
facts
how
going
is
on.
what Biden's doing worse than what Trump did exactly? We need to get someone, we need to find someone to actually man up and talk to us about this. Because the problem is we have a lot of people just say a lot of random shit and then they just scatter. And you can never like grab a hold to an actual argument being made.
Just because they come on doesn't mean you're going to not get the same exact experience.
Yeah, but at least it would be, more apparent. So
Yeah, I
oh,
don't
but
know.
okay, so to address the whole we should drill at home thing, um, that actually wouldn't help at all, unfortunately. So, and the reason it wouldn't help at all, and maybe it should, the reason it wouldn't help at all is because oil is priced based on the global market of oil. So, because we as a country don't, have nationalized oil, and because I don't believe we have any law that prevents oil companies from selling their oil overseas until, we like, there's no law that says oil companies are only allowed to sell oil drilled in America overseas. You know, they can't do that until we reach the amount of oil that we use as a country, right? We don't have a law like that. And so even if we increase supply to some extent, that's only going to have a very minor amount of change on the price because we just allow ourselves to basically drill oil in America and send it to wherever the fuck we want. And because, as I said, oil is priced on a global market. And if you have a commodity that's priced on a global market, unless you like increase your own domestic supply by some insane amount, which we couldn't do even if we wanted to, it's not going to affect price that much. And so
Yeah.
and that's what really disheartening to me is that I realized when I was looking into how oil is priced, the whole concept of oil independence is kind of impossible under our current system. Even if America produced all the oil that it required, it's like the price of that oil would still not be independent of the global market. And that's the real problem. And no one's really advocating for any way of changing that.
January 6th committee votes to compel Trump to testify. But I mean, so does that really, the January 6th committee doesn't have any legal authority. So, okay.
Hey, what do you changed the subject, so I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm reading headlines. January 6th committee
Oh,
votes
okay.
to
Why you?
compel Trump to testify. Because January 6th is going on today.
Okay.
I mean, the oil situation. I don't know what more I
Well, no,
can
I'm just
say
saying
about it.
for everyone who wants America to be oil independent, which I agree with. I'm just saying that can't. The problem I have is that when people talk about oil independence, they only talk about it in terms of increasing drilling in America, which I'm not opposed to, but that's not enough. You have to do something that uncouples the price of oil in America from the global oil market. And
Yeah.
no one is talk. That's the real thing you'd have to do. Because who cares if America's oil is energy independent if the price of our oil is still completely dependent on foreign affairs? That
If
defeats the entire point of being energy independent.
if we produce the amount of oil that America uses,
Hmm.
but other countries are willing to pay more for that oil. Our oil producers, instead of selling that oil in America, will sell it to other nations. They'll export the oil.
Right.
One of the We talked on a live stream recently about how we had an oil export ban up until 2015 and they overturned it. And a lot of the reason why we have so much domestic oil production going on right now is because they overturned that ban and are allowed to
Right.
export oil onto the global market. So,
Right. So they're incentivized to drill it. Yeah,
yeah,
that's true.
yes.
Well, and also fracking technologies increased substantially. So that's another big reason.
But fracking technology is more expensive. So you need oil
Yes,
needs
that's
to be
true.
a certain amount of, I think it's like $50 a barrel is when they
Wait,
start
is
getting interested.
fracking is only for natural gas or is it for
Oh yeah, I think it is for natural
everything?
gas. But I don't, I mean, obviously, screw Saudi Arabia. I just, I don't know. Everyone wants to play politics at home,
Hmm.
which is fine, I guess. The goal, we've really slipped into this, make the blue team or the red team seem corrupt. And that's the only
Yes.
game that we're playing. You know, Vosh gets on his
Yes.
channel all day long and talks about the corrupt Republicans. Jimmy Dore gets on his channel all day long and talks about the corrupt Democrats and the corrupt Republicans. You know, every um, who's Ben Shapiro gets on
People
his
say you
channel.
frack for oil. Okay, there you go.
Ben Shapiro gets on his channel and talks about the corrupt Democrats. Like everybody's going for the corruption angle. Maybe everything is not corruption. Maybe it's just, you know.
This is a great chat. It says Sitch is thinking so dumb in black and white. With little nuanced prices are linked to low supply. Increase supply, then you end up lowering the price. So someone in the same sentence says you are thinking in black and white with little nuance, and then they say they give me the black and white reason. You increase supply and that decreases price. Duh. Are you fucking retarded?
Mhm. Well, you
That's
do
incredible. That's an amazing form of cognitive dissonance right there on display.
you do increase supply and you lower price, but you got to admit you have to. There's like breaking points where you have to increase supply a significant amount before you're going to get a price cut.
Right, because the amount of price is going to go down based on supply is going to be based on the total supply. So, for example, if America has to if the American market for oil is completely cut off from the rest of the world, okay, then the amount of supply that you would have to increase to lower the price would be like so much less, be hundreds and hundreds of times less. But because it'd be essentially like, oh, well, anyway, but if you're trying to increase the supply to match the entire world and lower the price from a global perspective, that's just a drop in the bucket, essentially. And that's the problem that no one's addressing when they talk about energy independence, is that you have to create some kind of thing that partitions America's price of oil from the rest of the world, which
Yeah, you
no
ban
one wants to talk
exports.
about or do.
You ban exports. Any oil produced in the United States can only be sold in the United States. But
Yeah,
you
but
know
the
what happens
problem,
then?
then the oil
United
production
States
goes down.
production falls off a cliff
Exactly.
because they're like,
Exactly.
I don't
Right.
want, like, why do I want to sell oil?
Right.
Like that completely limits my market.
So what's the solution though?
If the global
If,
market is paying $50 a barrel, but the American market is only paying $30 a barrel, I'm fucked.
right. Oh, so what's the solution then?
What's the solution?
Yeah.
Nuclear, nuclear, nuclear.
But here are well, here's a question I actually have. Are nuclear or plants that use or energy companies that use nuclear plants, are these private companies? Are they government companies or are they private government quasi entities?
Nuclear power plants?
Yes.
I don't know. Who knows?
Because I don't know the answer to that. Because when you talk about this is why you try to decouple U.S. energy consumption from oil, which maybe that will be what we do down the road. it's sort of like, okay, you're essentially saying we need to decouple from this capital market because this one capital market has too much power. And it's like, okay, well, you could just regulate it, right? I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me unless you're just talking about an environmental thing, but it's private with federal regulators. So essentially we're saying, well, we're too beholden to a capital market, so we have to switch our energy to an energy that can only be sold and sourced locally. That's essentially what you're saying. If you're saying that we need to switch from oil to nuclear to subvert this problem. And I don't think as a country we should allow capital markets to control us. I think that's silly. I think it's incredibly silly.
Capital markets incentivize oil production, though. I mean, what are we going to do? Are we going to say you have to produce oil? I mean,
I don't know. I don't know the
you
answer.
yourself admit that getting rid of the export ban, that's what increased oil
Well,
production.
okay, so say we put an export ban in place again.
Right. And
It
oil
doesn't have to be a full
production
ban.
drops off the charts.
Right. And it doesn't have to be a full ban. It would be a ban up to whatever the amount of oil that America needs. And this ban would include some way of actually decoupling the price of oil in America for Americans from the rest of the world. So, for example, maybe in America, oil costs, $1.50, in the rest of the world, it costs $7, right?
Hmm.
Um,
Do you know how
and
much oil we use and how much we produce?
I don't, I believe that we produce more than we use, don't we?
I don't know. You were the
I
one doing
I
research on oil today.
I thought we reached that point in like 2018 or something.
Right.
But um no, so the oil companies say, "Hey, we're not making enough money this way, so we're going to stop pumping oil," right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Open a
So
casino.
why right. So then don't you think that taxpayers would say, "Hey, we'll fund the government to basically pump oil for super cheap for everyone?"
I mean, a lot of people are not going to like that.
Yeah, but they're not going to like it for psychological reasons. They're not going to not like it for logical reasons.
Well, the as long as the price of gas is going down, I'm sure
Well, that's what I'm saying.
people are pragmatists.
If you had to pay in taxes some amount of money that was less than however much you paid for gas to fill up your car, and it lowered gas prices to some astronomically low price because it was run by a non-for-profit entity, the government, and then any surplus gas was then sold overseas so the government could make money, so then the government could actually lower your taxes depending on that amount. Why would anyone not be in favor of that?
You could solve this problem with the strategic oil reserve.
Mm-hmm.
If you I don't know how big the strategic oil reserve is, so but if it's large enough to do this, you could, as the federal government, become a buyer of oil at any particular price.
Mm-hmm.
So you could basically set a range for oil. Let's say between $50 and $75. You want to monopolize that range. So whenever oil reaches $50 a barrel, you're a buyer of oil. And you're just going to buy that oil and you're going to put it in the strategic oil reserve. So oil can never really go below $50 a barrel because as soon as it gets to $50 a barrel, you've got as much money as we want to print to just buy it and put it in the strategic reserve. So as soon as oil goes up to $75 a barrel and the Saudi Arabians start fucking us, they're like
Mm-hmm.
$80 a barrel, $90 a barrel, $100 a barrel. You open up the strategic oil reserve and you're a seller at $75 a barrel. And you're not going to raise your price. And who's going to buy from Saudi Arabia at $90 a barrel when you can buy it from us at $75 a barrel? So, but we need to put as much oil in the ground because Saudi Arabia, I guess they're sitting on just like an ocean of oil. I don't know if we can fit an ocean of oil into the strategic oil reserve, but that's the way you
Mm-hmm.
control the price of oil. Like
Well, there's two problems with that. One, which is you said, I
People are
don't
going
know
to
if we
freak
could.
out. Yeah, they're just
Well,
like,
no, I don't
what?
know
Oh
if we
my
could.
God, the government takeover of oil, price setting. Oh
Right.
shit. Oh, I'm losing my mind.
I don't know if America could, like, how much oil would they need to do that long term?
Yeah.
Because then it would become like a pissing contest between, like, well, is OPEC going to lower the price before America's strategic reserve runs out?
Hmm.
Um, so there's
Yeah,
that
because as soon
problem.
as we're at $75 a barrel and we're selling oil, like we're depleting
Right,
our
right.
we're depleting our and
But there's a second issue, which is that I believe this, I remember, I don't, the problem is that the way in which oil prices are set and the way in which oil is sold is super complicated, much
Mhm.
more complicated than most people understand, including myself. And I remember when Biden started releasing the strategic oil reserve stuff,
Right.
there were a bunch of articles that were saying when
It's
they
not going to
release,
put a dent in prices.
right, but part of the reason it doesn't put a dent in prices is because when they release oil from the strategic reserve, it still goes into that weird private global market price setting thing.
Well, and
It's not like, oh, like under the scenario that you put forward, you have to actually change it so that when the US government releases oil from the strategic supply, it forces private businesses in America to sell that oil at some specific price.
Saudi Arabia, and don't say forces business to sell at some particular price. That's price setting.
But then what you're
The
saying doesn't work, it doesn't do anything then otherwise.
the problem is Biden releases 2 million barrels from the strategic oil reserve. And Saudi Arabia says, okay, well, we'll cut 2 million barrels. And it's a wash because you've
Right.
got the same amount of barrels. Like the price of oil is set by supply and demand. It's there's a demand for 10 million barrels of oil. I'm just making up numbers here just to make it easy.
Well, it's
There's
also said it's more than supply and demand because a lot of it's future speculation. But
there's demand for 10 million barrels of oil.
right.
There's if you have 12 if you produce 12 million barrels of oil, obviously supply is going to be higher than demand and the price is going to go down. If you pump 8 million barrels of oil, you've got a 2 million barrel deficit. The price is going to go up. People are going to be competing for that oil. I need the oil more than you. No, I need the oil more than you. That's what drives prices up. Competing, people in the marketplace competing for limited resources, right? For whatever reason, they got a business. Some people are forced to actually buy the stuff. So, but Saudi Arabia does this regularly where they say, let's dial back oil production and drive the price up so gas prices go up and we kick the guy out of office that we don't like in America because Americans vote out whoever gives them high gas prices.
Hmm.
This happens quite regularly. I mean, this is why Saudi Arabia's been doing this since the 80s.
Of course.
That's why we got to fill up that strategic oil
Yeah, but I'm
reserve.
saying that just filling that up alone doesn't do anything.
Well,
Until again, it's filling up the strategic oil reserve until you somehow decouple the US oil market from the rest of the world doesn't solve the problem.
well, the
Because like it's just like you said, if we have 2 million barrels in our strategic reserve and we release them and Saudi Arabia just cuts production by 2 million, then it's pointless.
because you can ship anywhere in the world, oil is everyone in the world is competing on oil. Is competing for that oil.
Yeah,
So
but why
let's
should
just
we? If we can produce enough oil, if America can produce enough oil for itself, why the fuck are we fucking ourselves over
yeah. Why are
by
we exporting it?
competing? Yeah, why are we exporting it? Why are we having to force ourselves to compete with everyone else? It makes absolutely no fucking sense except to make a couple of, oil companies super rich. It's
Yeah.
insane. It's totally insane.
Well, it does incentivize our oil companies to export, which I'm not
Yeah,
in favor of that. Why are we giving our good shit away?
I
I
don't
like to keep
know.
my good shit,
I don't
right?
know. We're all the populist Republicans on this, okay? Where's all the Trump MAGA populist Republicans who decided that it was okay to start regulating businesses? Why are they not speaking up on this issue of decoupling oil markets from the rest of the world?
When people talk about a trade deficit, it always drives me crazy because I'm like, what do you mean? Yes, I want to produce our stuff and keep it and then produce their stuff and give it to us. Like, that's called winning. That's called winning.
Right,
Yes.
right.
We want a trade deficit. We want them making a bunch of stuff that we get to use, that we get to use and abuse. And they
Hmm.
can save the paper money we send to them.
Right, right.
It's so hilarious. Yeah. I don't know. I've been arguing with people about how we're the reserve currency of the world. And if you think about it, who is really gonna, like, people worry that we're gonna lose reserve currency status, and that's gonna really make import exports more difficult for us. But who people use the dollar because we have the most politically stable situation in the world. Like, nobody even comes close to competing with us. And
Hmm.
for all the instability that we have, America, obviously, we got some room cleaning to do here. Like, things are not in a great place right now by comparison to where we've been before. But who comes close? Who has the kind of size and stability that America has?
I
Who
don't. No
could
one
step
does.
up and be the reserve
Nobody.
currency? Yeah, nobody's even
Nobody.
close. We're like, we're looking back and we've lapped everyone like 10 times. There's no
Hmm.
way. There's no way anybody could come up. The euro? Yeah, right. The British pound? Yeah, right. What do Australians even use? Yeah, right.
They use didgeridoos, don't they?
Canadian dollar? Yeah.
The loony. You want to use the loony?
No way. It's USD from here on out. I don't know.
Oh, I know. How about they use? How about they use the? Was it the yuan, the Chinese currency?
Oh yeah, the manipulated yuan. They don't even peg their currency.
The one where the Chinese government could just come in and seize your company, essentially.
They just make up what. Oh, here's what the yuan's worth today, guys. That's ridiculous.
Yeah. No, it's true.
Not only that, one of the reasons why the U.S. dollar is so strong is because places like China, unstable places like Russia,
Hmm.
they want dollars. They want some sort of dollar savings account somewhere in the world because they know their governments can come in and expropriate all of their property.
Hmm.
Yeah, they do it because they want to feel safe. They know their yuan bank account is open to being confiscated at any moment because they posted something on social media that someone didn't like.
Andrew Clark sent me a DM. Says today, almost all commercial reactors in the USA are owned by private companies, and nuclear industry as a whole has far greater private participation and less concentration than any other country. Yet the government remains more involved in commercial nuclear power than any other industry in the USA. So there you go.
Wowzers.
So, but that's exactly what I said. That's shows that when people say we need to transition from oil to nuclear, if you're not talking about environmental reasons, which is a whole other thing, you're basically saying we can't control capital markets. We can't control businesses at all. We have no power over business. So we have to force our technology to use energy that's too difficult to outsource.
We're
So we have to change our energy to some format that basically the business is forced to sell the energy locally. That's what
so
you're saying. Because, well, let me just say this: if nuclear energy plants, if they could produce the energy and sell it across the ocean, sell it, in a global market the way they sell oil, then switching to nuclear wouldn't do anything. We'd be in the exact same situation with oil.
the future, and Saudi Arabia is fucked when we get to this future.
Yeah, I know.
We're
That's the
we're
real thing.
we're going to move to nuclear power plants, and electricity is going to become so cheap, and we're going to electrify everything. We're going to
Hmm.
electrify the entire transportation system. All of that stuff is going to be electrified, and we're going to get that electricity from nuclear. So, and then the oil, Saudi Arabia is like they don't have any sort of creative destruction cycle going. They don't have any sort of innovation cycle. They're not patenting new products and services. Saudi Arabia is just making money selling, something they pull out of the ground for next to nothing on the open
Right.
market. Their whole economy is going to collapse.
Well, I think though that we're still now. I think we'll be able to solve this, but I think one of the main limiting factors for nuclear is still battery capacity. We still need to figure out how to make better batteries out of better materials.
Did you know that? Maybe I told you this. I can't remember if I did. One of the ways that they store electricity is by pumping water up into reservoirs. Do you know this?
No, I don't know.
Okay, so and it's really weird because where's the electricity when they do this? So a way to store electricity is to pump water up into a reservoir. So you pump all the water up there and the water sits there until you need the electricity, and then you let the water come down and it turns a turbine and creates electricity. so the
Hmm.
actual reservoir is a store of electricity.
I see. Yeah, but I'm
Yeah.
assuming that's not. I would imagine the scale of electricity that would generate would not be sufficient for
No, it
like
is. This is actually how
really.
electricity grids do store electricity. Yes.
Wow. Okay,
This is
that's
one of the
interesting.
major ways that they do it. Yeah. So
I didn't
when
know
they
that.
have the electricity, because
Right.
obviously electricity, it's like it dissipates, or I don't, how do you like what?
Right. Yeah. Well, you need to store it in something.
So
Yeah.
when I guess it's because electricity is kind of created on the fly, like as a windmill turbine pumps, like you're creating electricity. The wind's blowing, you're creating electricity. While you're creating a lot of electricity, the wind is going to stop sooner or later. So while that electricity is high, you pump water up into a reservoir. Then the wind stops, right? You're out of electricity from wind, but you can let the water come back
Yeah.
down
No.
again,
I
and now
yeah. I
you get
understand that. But
yeah.
I mean, you still need lots of batteries though, because you're still unless every car and like obviously it's one more for planes, but unless every vehicle, everything that runs on oil, unless all those things somehow are like unless we change our entire runway, our entire roads, so that everything is on some kind of like weird track that powers your car with electricity as it's driving. You
No,
still need batteries
battery.
for all these things.
The problem with battery technology is that they can only store enough charge to go less than 200 miles, and that's the problem of battery storage is a range problem.
Well, no, it's not just the range, but it's also that these batteries have to be
Charged,
replaced fairly often.
yeah.
They don't
Well,
last like if even if the cars only had a 200-mile range, but those batteries were good for 20 years or something. I don't know if this would be a problem, but they have to change these battery. Like that's why when they
oh, they
say,
are. I don't know
yeah,
about
that
that.
like the amount of waste that's end up produced by batteries is like astronomical. And since they have to use like lithium and a lot of rare earth minerals that are annoying to get to make these batteries, it's like a big problem. Now there are some companies that are claiming they're figuring out ways of making batteries out of like corn and easy to get things. And I believe that at some point in the future we'll have easy to make batteries. But until we get there, that's all I'm saying is that's going to be a limiting factor on even nuclear energy. So
All right, you want to move on to
anyway,
John Stewart or what?
let's move on to John Stewart.
Do we solve the oil thing?
We didn't solve the oil, and people are still brainwashed.
No, we
I'll
need
just
to
say
read
this:
read some super chats because
if
people are
uh, if
like,
anyone wants to come on and debate that issue,
yeah, reach out to me.
send Adam a Twitter DM, or if you know a YouTuber or streamer who wants to debate that issue, I'll tell them to reach out to Adam because I'd be very curious to have that conversation with somebody.
Lucifer the Doberman says, very interesting, convoluted. Oh, Lucifer the Doberman for 5 Canadian
Thank you. For 5 loonies.
says, very interesting, convoluted copium session, Sitch. Do you need a cookie?
That's how you know that someone is engaged in cognitive dissonance, is that they don't have an actual argument. They just ad hom you.
I mean,
So there
I
you go.
do feel stylistically, though, we're kind of leaning a little bit into like the, the people being brainwashed over this stuff does not bother me at all. And I do not think you can really change it because they're they didn't logic themselves into this position. They're not going to
Right.
logic themselves out of
Oh
it.
no, that's true. That's true. And maybe
Yeah.
there's some way to craft the argument to appeal to the elephant to
There
change their mind. I don't know.
there are
But
certain things that just everybody has wrong. And
hmm
I've come to the conclusion that I'm just going to let them have it wrong because it's just not really worth my time and energy to make it so that
hmm
they're correct.
I disagree with you.
Hmm.
There are some people that will forever be NPCs.
Right.
But there are people, and we hear from a lot of them
Yeah, there
who
are our
say,
audience, definitely.
yeah, from our audience who say, you know, you guys changed my mind. You guys made me sort of understand things a little, or helped me understand
Mhm.
things, you know, better and more objective and more neutral. So there are a lot of people out there who can change their minds. It's not an impossible thing to do.
There are a few people out there that can change their minds, and they're all in our audience. Like,
Right. Right.
yeah.
So no. Uh,
I'm just seeing if any of
none
these
of the super
are.
chats are really. Gene Angry Penguin for $5 says oil is such a vital component of our ability to maintain our populations that we use as a global commodity so we don't beat each other to death. Well, I mean, that could be, you could be right. That would be an interesting thing is that if America decoupled its oil market from the rest of the world, maybe that would lower our oil prices, but would cause like massive global instability. So, no,
Acco-
you could be right. I don't know.
According to Peter Zahan, we're kind of moving in that direction anyway.
Hmm
Peter Zahan's premise is that America is going to stop being world police and stop focusing on creating a world where you can ship anything from any point to any other point in the world and just focus on domestic production.
Why
And
does he think that's going to happen?
because the cost of policing all of these shipping lanes is really just being borne by the United States, and it was a a good investment at one time, but as the rest of the world kind of becomes a first world nation and the cheap labor aspect of it is not really a thing anymore, then it loses its good deal for America. It
Hmm
loses its good standing as a good deal for America. So America will pull back, and he's written a couple books on this. So he basically has written books for investors on where in the world, which areas of the world are going to become stable markets and which players are going to dominate those markets. But the US is in great shape. Like if you want to feel good about America, read Peter Zahan. So,
Well, yeah, I mean, I definitely think America could very easily make itself independent on almost everything.
of course.
Um, I'm just not sure I agree with, I don't agree with his prediction. I think it's only going to become easier and easier and easier and easier, especially as if energy gets cheaper, if we move away from oil to something even cheaper, it's only going to be easier to move things from America to other countries. So
It's not
I
it's not
can't
a
fathom that.
it's not an energy thing. It's a military policing. It's a pirates thing. You send a ship full of wares, you got to make sure pirates don't steal all the
This
shit.
pirate,
This is
how
a
much pirating goes on right now in
look.
the world?
You don't even
What
really know the premise of
what's the rate of piracy for a company right now that's selling goods, you know, and shipping goods?
we have military ships policing all of these shipping lanes from pirates. It's not
Yeah.
the cost of the oil to ship things back and forth.
Okay,
It's
so
the
why would the
cost
US
of the
government stop doing
it's
that?
the cost of the military. It's the cost of the guns. It's the
I
cost of
understand that.
the
Yeah, but so
why
that
would
makes the
we
prediction
stop
make
doing
even
that?
less
Because we
sense.
spend more money on the military than anybody else. Why are we doing this for everybody?
How much of
Why are we
we'll just start
policing
charging
shipping
everyone?
lanes?
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. This prediction makes no sense. It will why don't we just charge everyone for this? Why would we stop doing it?
You should talk to Peter Zahan about this, okay?
There seems to
A
be
minute ago you didn't even know piracy was a thing.
No, I know piracy is a thing. I've seen the South Park episode, Adam. What I'm saying is I don't know what the rate of piracy. I don't buy that the rate of piracy is so high that create
Is that
it
based
would
on your
make
gut?
private it
Is that
is
based on your gut intuition?
based 100% on my gut
Why
intuition.
don't you look
Okay.
into it and get back to me on this then?
1000% based on my gut intuition. I do not believe that the rate of piracy is so high that it'll create a situation where in the future, in some near future, businesses will decide to sell almost everything locally to cut down on piracy. I don't buy that for a fucking second at all.
Do you know that the
Our military
most
technology is only going to get
Do
better
you
and
know that
better
the
and better.
most money that these shippers spend is on insurance against piracy? You really got to read Zahan. Like
Yeah, but
it's
that doesn't mean anything.
okay. What do you mean it doesn't mean anything?
You could say if you say the highest cost for shipping goods is insurance against piracy, I say okay, but what percentage of that is based on their profit? Because obviously, whatever profit they're making is way more than whatever the insurance costs. And so he's saying that he speculates in the future the insurance cost for piracy will raise to be higher than whatever the profit of selling the good is overseas. And I can't imagine a world in where where politics, why would our political situation ever allow that? Like, do you think that either political party is going to just say, well, we're giving up to pirates, so we're just going to sell everything domestically now? No, they're going to say, let's go blow the shit out of some fucking pirates with our military, and then we'll charge the rest of the world for this service. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me.
What are you going to charge them?
Whatever it costs, I don't know. How much of our military budget goes to fighting piracy? I have no clue.
Okay.
This seems like a weird prediction to me.
Well, I just like I okay.
How much of our military budget goes to fighting piracy? I mean, I would believe, I would believe more that our country would go invade, Somalia or whatever country's producing pirates and install, like take out the leaders, install a government, and do that before we would give up on international trade.
Okay.
Do you disagree with that? This seems so weird
Well,
to me. This seems so strange to me.
I'm in a situation right now where I'm only talking to Sitch's gut based on zero information whatsoever. So
Yeah, but
I don't want to
you're
have
only relating this based on your gut of trusting Peter
No.
Zahan.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Peter Zahan uses facts and figures and tables and all kinds of stuff, okay? So are you saying he's
What is
constructed a
his
world where he basically has just lied in
Peter
his book?
Zahan? Well, I'd have to see what is his argument about the piracy.
So are you saying when Peter Zahan says that when Peter Zahan talks about global piracy, he's making it up? He's just basically working off of his gut? Is that your claim?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so it's your gut against Peter Zahan's gut. Okay, well, you guys have that gut off if you want,
Okay.
but I mean, what do you think the United States military does? What do you think the Navy? What do you think
when you
the
say I'm
Navy
basing
does? What do you think
wait,
the purpose
when
of
you
the
say
Navy
basing
is?
this off my gut, I'm basing this off of the American attitude. And I have to weigh in my mind and say, based on America's history and America's attitude towards things, are American politicians more likely to say, hey, there's a lot of pirates out there, and so we're going to kind of allow the pirates to win, and we're going to stop international trade, at least through shipping, because obviously they'll fly stuff. Or is a politician going to stand up on a podium and bang it and say, this is motherfucking America. We will not be cowed. We will not be, we will not hide in fear from some fucking pirates. We're going to go blow the fuck out of these people. We're going to root them out of whatever caves they're living in and destroy them all. And you're asking me, which one do I think the American public is going to go for? That's where my gut is right now. And I'm saying, well, the Americans going to go for the latter. They're going to go for being strong. They're not going to cower from pirates. That's like
I
political
mean,
suicide.
at this point in time when we've got the entire Republican Party wanting to be isolationist, I mean, who
Yeah,
knows?
but there's a difference between isolationists, like I don't want to involve myself in foreign affairs, and I don't want to protect America's like businesses from being able to do international trade. Like I feel like that cuts right to the heart of like right-wing moral intuitions. And anyone that claims that they care about free markets or anything. I don't know. But we
Plu
can move
pays
on. I
for
just don't
five
think it's
dollars
gonna
says
happen.
Plu pays for $5 says the rate of piracy is low because of the U.S. military. If we weren't patrolling the seas and ensuring safe sailing, we'd see a sharp rise in piracy. Yeah,
There you go.
that's
Right.
exactly what Peter Zahan says.
Yeah, but I'm just saying I don't understand why Piers Ahan thinks we would stop. I guess that's
Well,
what I just. I mean, I'll have to read his book, but I just don't understand his argument.
I just said like there is a point when being, you know, ensuring that oil can travel from Russia to Europe safely is just not in our interest. Like you guys figure out how to get your oil safely from one place to another on your own
Hmm.
and fuck off. We don't need to be the American taxpayer doesn't need to be spending 80% of its budget on a military so that we can ship goods cheaply from China to America. Why don't we just make those goods in America? I mean, it's his
Because
thesis, but
yeah,
you
no,
seem
no,
to
well,
think
because
global.
there's no political will to do that. That's the problem. There's no political will to do that. It goes completely counter to
Mhm.
the messaging of the Republican Party for the last 60 years.
Well, things change. I
They
mean,
do.
Russia,
I'm
the
skeptical, but we can move on.
the the Republican
Hmm.
Party was anti-Russia forever, and then one day they woke up and said, "Hey, we love Russia now." So
Sure. No, things do change. I would be utterly baffled and shocked if this changed.
you were utterly baffled and shocked when Russia invaded Ukraine too.
I did because I thought it'd be really stupid for them. And I mean, I was right about that at least. It was really stupid for them.
Peter Zahan also goes into the demographics of every single country. So
Hmm.
I don't, it's weird. I think this is a weird thing that you do from time to time. You dismiss some person that you just know nothing about.
Well, no, that's not what's happening. What's happening is you tell me something that you
Mm-hmm.
read, and I say, that doesn't sound like it makes any sense.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm arguing with you, and you're sort of recalling the information. Like I'd have to read his actual argument
Yeah.
because when I'm like Google searching his argument, all they just give these summaries and they just say that he's basically saying that because of the decline of the US Navy, piracy is going to increase. But then I say, well, but then we'll just increase our Navy presence again. Like I don't understand why does
Well,
he
do you
I'd have to read his
understand though?
argument to understand why he thinks that the Navy would just decline, 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 and America would just allow that to happen. It just that seems so counter to all of America's behavior up until this point that I don't understand his argument, and I'd have to actually read it.
Well,
So,
there's a costs and benefits, right? And imports, cheap imports is a benefit. And the cost is the Navy. So if we're paying billions of dollars and getting, millions of dollars worth of value, then we're doing something completely stupid.
I understand it, but it's more than that because our politicians don't look at things in that level of pragmatism,
Mm-hmm.
and they look at things from what their voters and what their selector wants. And it's hard for me to imagine a politician basically saying publicly, hey, we should cut down on our military so that piracy increases, so that companies have to sell their products domestically and we have to be a self-sufficient country. It's very difficult for me to imagine someone making that argument and for voters to support that.
Well, you got to admit though, there are limitations because voters want free everything, right? Free healthcare, free basic income, free everything, right?
Hmm.
So there's a limited number of resources that politicians can use to satiate the voters. It's not an
I
infinite,
understand that.
yeah.
Right.
So if cheap imports are not paying their paying for themselves, then obviously, something's got to give. It's not an infinite resource type situation. So,
I understand, but I'm just saying, like,
but
if some
you are
politician,
postulating though that it is infinite resources
that's
because
not what I'm
you're
postulating at
saying
all.
whatever, as long as the
Wait, what?
voters want it, then it can be sustained forever.
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that what this is suggesting goes so counter to America's core philosophy
Hmm.
and messaging for 60, 70, 80, 100
Yeah,
years,
no, it is a
which,
giant change. It is,
right,
yeah.
which, yeah, I guess something could happen. Now, it's, of course, some magic third scenario could happen. Russia could accidentally create a nuclear winter, and who the fuck knows what will happen then, right? So, but I'm saying, bearing aside some like massive change, we're not headed in that direction. And it's hard for me to imagine what would cause us to have this radical shift in that direction. That's all I'm saying.
Well, we're being world police, and other countries are not paying us for it. And you seem to think, okay, well,
We'll just
we'll
make them pay
just
for it.
send them an invoice and start
Yeah.
charging them. What is that? What does that look like? Are we gonna?
I'll tell you what it looks like. Instead of the military patrolling shipping lanes or doing whatever they're doing, they
Mhm,
just protect U.S. ships. And
mhm.
then everyone else starts getting fucked over. And then they say, please, we'll pay you to stop this. And then they pay us and then we stop it. That's exactly what it looks like.
Yeah, but what are they going to pay us?
I don't know, I don't know what the budget is. I don't know how much it costs for us to do this.
Well, we're the world's reserve. We don't want dollars. We want resources. So they're going to give us oil in exchange for this?
That's okay. No, they will pay us in dollars. We do want dollars.
No, we don't. We
Yes,
produce
we do,
dollars.
because we get those dollars and then we can give them to other countries for other things. What are you talking about?
They're going to pay, they're going to sell something and get dollars and then give us those dollars.
Yeah, they're going to pay us in dollars. What I don't. What do you think? Wait, what do you think foreign countries pay the American government now?
Well, what do you mean?
I'm assuming that when the U.S. government trades with another country and they're paying the U.S. government, I'm assuming they're paying in U.S. dollars or in whatever currency is local to that government.
Well, they're paying
They're not paying in like sheep. They're not paying in like a resource.
they're paying different companies that are taking in dollars. I don't know the United States. I don't know that the military is being paid in dollars. I mean, we fund the US military by printing dollars and paying everybody, all
Well,
the
like, okay, so
personnel.
like
And
if we get
when we buy like a super tank, when we buy any sort of military hardware, we're basically paying a company to make that thing and give it
No,
to
no, no.
us.
I
So,
understand that, but I'm saying like from when it comes to direct U.S. dealings.
right,
So like if the U.S. government gives a country a loan, okay,
right.
and that country pays us back, I don't know, but I'm assuming they pay us back in U.S. dollars.
Why would we take a loan? So China is going to give us a loan in yuan. What do we need yuan for?
Where the U.S. isn't taking loans from China. What are you talking
Well,
about?
no, you're saying that we're going to bill China
No,
for
no, no,
military
no.
services.
Okay,
Well,
we
just,
would bill everyone.
okay.
I don't understand this argument at all. But the U.S. does have, if the U.S. government gets U.S. dollars, that's valuable to them because then they can use those dollars. I know we're going on the MMT train, but that means is that basically they're lowering the supply of U.S. dollars out in foreign countries, which increases the value of U.S. dollars in other countries.
Right. Yeah, no.
So
That's the way
that's a
it would
thing they
happen.
want, right?
They have a bunch of reserve currency already. They would give it to the treasury, and treasury would just burn the money basically.
Yeah, but that's still the U.S. government wants that. That's still valuable to the U.S. government.
Sure. Shrinks the money supply.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyways, should we
Is there any more super chats on this? I feel like everyone was getting riled
um
up.
they were, but I don't know if there's that many.
Adam's facts
Super
don't
chat.
care about Sitch's feelings. I like that.
Brian 8427 for $10. Well, there you go.
Adam's facts don't care about Sitch's feelings.
Hmm. I am skeptical of these facts. Well, first of all, you don't have the facts, which is fair. I don't expect you to because it's not
Yeah,
your
I
argument.
just
It's Peter
exactly. I'm
Zahan's
like,
argument.
geez. You're like,
So
Zahan is so full of shit. I'm like,
th-
oh my God, what the
listen, you have
fuck?
to give me when I hear something that's wildly stupid sounding, okay,
Hmm.
you're gonna have to give me the 5 minutes of saying that sounds really fucking stupid,
You
and you
do
just have
that,
to give it to
but
me.
you do this all the time,
Yeah, but
though.
then yeah, but okay. Let's talk about how human beings talk to each
Hmm.
other. Okay. We can't exist as maybe you can, but I am not. And actually I think your past behavior will show that you're not. I am not a robot automaton. Okay.
Hmm.
I cannot walk through the world and experience all things from this emotionless perspective. So if I hear something that sounds really fucking dumb, I'm gonna react to it the way most people react to it and say, that sounds really fucking dumb, which is an emotional elephant reaction. The goal here, the goal here is to be able to, once you're in that state of mind, to be able to pull back from it and to grab the reins of your elephant. Okay. Which I did through the course of the conversation with
True.
your help. With your help, Adam.
True. I know.
Okay.
I'm getting good at this. I'm getting good at staying chill.
Well, you need to work on some of your chill yourself.
Well,
But
Zahan has all the facts. Like he's like a fact machine.
maybe.
So,
But I
but
guess in the course of our
you've
conversation,
listened to
you don't have those. You're
zero.
not giving
Yeah.
me the facts, so I can't make that determination.
Yeah. Because I don't know like the
I
world
understand that.
piracy rate.
And
The,
that's fine. And that's fine. I'm
the
not saying that
last,
you have to.
the
But you
last
have to
talk.
give me some, but you have to give me leeway enough to say, well, you're right. I can't tell you the facts. So I understand that intuitively this sounds crazy.
Right.
Because you do understand that intuitively this sounds crazy.
It doesn't though. It just sounds perfectly reasonable to me.
Okay. Well, then I
Like
guess that's what we're
there's
talking
a
about. But
cost. You know, if cities want to move out into the boondocks, right? And people want to live out in the middle of nowhere. There's a cost to building a post office out there, to building a police department out there, right? I mean, certain places in the world become the wild, wild west. Why is it? It just makes perfect sense to me that why is it America's responsibility to make sure that some uh, country in the middle of nowhere has safe shipping lanes so that they can import, and most of it is imports. It's not really the exports. It's like these small island nations, they're not exporting a lot that we need. They're importing shit. That's the only way they can survive is because they import a bunch of shit. Places like Taiwan. Why are we paying for that? Fuck them.
because it helps American business. What are you talking about?
Well, I mean, that's the thing. You have to do the equation. How much does it help American business? As soon as it gets to the point where, well, it's not really helping American business that much,
Well,
then
no, no,
they
no.
say no. Let's not do it.
It is helping American business. You can make now maybe you can make some argument that maybe it's not helping the majority of American people, but that's a different argument.
Right.
And I don't know if you could sell that argument. I mean, you saw how much pushback there was in that argument just for oil. Now I can't imagine that pushback for every commodity that we that we ship. It just seems, I don't know. That's why I can't imagine the political animus that would motivate this. And also,
Well, we're a net importer though. So
here's another thing too. Why was the country? What sparked the founding of America?
the founding of America
Yeah, what
was
sparked America to break off from the British?
no taxation without representation, bitch.
Right. And why were the British taxing us?
Because they're pieces of shit. They
No. Well,
fucking
yes, but no. What was their argument?
their rationale.
Yeah, what was their rationale?
They were
Do you remember?
colonialists.
So the rationale for England taxing America, which led to the Revolutionary War, was literally the exact situation that you're discussing with this shipping stuff, with the pirates. It was Americans were going west. And you know what was out west? A bunch of pissed off Native
Mhm.
Americans.
Native Americans.
Yes, a bunch of pissed off Native Americans who would then kill the settlers. And when
Yeah.
they would kill and attack the settlers and the settlers' colonies, the Brits, who when we were a colony of, would have to send out their army to go protect the colonists or kill the Native Americans. And so England said, hey, you guys need to stop going west because it's costing too much money for us to send the military out there to protect you. And what did the independent Americans say? They
We'll
said,
protect ourselves.
fuck you. We're independent Americans, damn it, and we're gonna go where we want. Don't tell us what to do. And so Americans kept going to West, and the Brits kept sending the army to protect the colonists. And so Britt said, okay, well, if you guys are going to keep going west because you're such strong, independent people, we're going to start charging you for this military protection in the form of this taxation. And that was the taxation that led to the taxation without representation argument, which led to the American Revolution. So, I mean, America has built into it from its origin point this idea of we're not going to let ourselves be, bullied by violent forces, whether it be Native Americans or pirates. We're going to go where we want to go. And that's why I'm saying it's hard for me to imagine this idea being sold politically.
Well, I mean, Zahan could be full of shit. Who knows? We'll see how it
Yeah,
plays
I don't
out.
know.
We'll see which way it goes. I mean, I do know he's talking to like foreign diplomats and fucking military personnel and investors and shit like that. But I
Hmm.
mean, it wouldn't be the first time some fucking crackpot was out there selling some cryptocurrency to investors. So who knows? I mean, it's an interesting thesis.
Anyways,
I don't think he's lying about global piracy.
no, he might. Well, I think he's right in that the American Navy might be the thing that's stopping it. Again, as I just said, I don't see the energy or animus politically that would motivate to allow it to continue unhindered. I just don't see that. I don't see that coming about. So
You don't see America pulling back.
I don't see America ever. I can't imagine a politician selling that. Now, again, it could happen. Something could change and it could happen. I don't see it right now. And I'd be curious as to why he sees that coming down the pipeline.
Yeah. Let's You want to watch the video?
Yeah.
All right. This should be much easier. No economics, right? Economics is fascinating to me.
Hmm.
I don't care what you guys say.
People were saying that the tax was to fund the 7 Years' War. I understand that. That was part of the 7 year thing. Was because because that was part of the problem. Is the colonists kept going west. This is all tied into itself. They're not separate issues. I don't understand what you're talking about. But anyway,
Cool. Look at this. So, what happened to John Stewart, Sitch? What? He's like a total NPC now. He's a fucking
hmm
moron. He's not only is he a moron, but he's a smug moron, which is the worst type.
he basically hired a writing staff of super woke young people, and they essentially rotted his brain.
Yeah.
That's what happened. And see, this is the problem. John Stewart is brainwashed, and he's been brainwashed for many years because he was basically been brainwashed to say blue team good, red team bad.
Yep.
That's what he's been brainwashed to say, the thing.
Yeah. So
And so everything is,
blue team comes up with this crazy policy around transitioning minors before they've even gone through puberty. It's so crazy to me
mhm.
to think that you can someone before puberty who has no experience being an adult human female or an adult human male is we're just letting them make decisions about their body, their future, their everything. What? That's insane to me. That's insane to me. I mean, you know about human psychology.
Mhm.
What the fuck? What the fuck? And I listen to these parents talking about how, oh yeah, my kids started telling me when they were 3 years old. And I'm like, okay. Okay. Wisdom of a 3-year-old.
Well, the problem is that, Stewart, going back to what you said earlier, Stewart's on blue team good. He's been on blue team good for many years. And a lot of old people who are boomers, since they were young in the civil rights movement, they just have this incorrect notion where they perceive social change always through this is the problem. People, most people are not empathetic and they only perceive events through their own experiences. So you have all these boomers that are only like whenever they experience some kind of social change, they relate it to their experience when they were young and they assume that every social change is just civil rights movement 2.0, 3.0, 4.0 going forward.
Right.
And a big part of that movement was young people versus old people. And with the idea that, like, oh, the old people just don't understand, right? Because they're old and they're set in their ways. And it's up to us, the young people, to basically lead the charge, the change.
Yeah.
And so I think with a lot of these older liberals and older left wing people, part of what's motivating them is that they're so desperate to not be old and appear old. They're like, I'm young and I'm hip and I'm still with the times. And if the young hip times are to be woke, I must adopt that to be young and hip, essentially.
Wow. You're saying he's just doing it to be cool.
Well, I don't think it's a conscious thought. I just think this is sort of like the motivation for a lot of this shit. They kind of they just perceive wokeness as, this generation's civil rights movement, essentially. They just see everything through that lens. And because of that, they're not understanding the difference between the liberal civil rights movement and the sort of woke socialist movement that's occurring right now.
Well, I'm super disappointed. And I don't know that this will ever happen with Jon Stewart because I don't think he'll have a conversation with someone that is actually will challenge him on these things. I don't, there's zero skepticism going on in this conversation over transgenderism or the trans debate.
Right.
I don't, when these people, and we've had a number of people on the show that have come on and started citing different studies. They make it sound like this is like evolution. They've been studying this for 150 years, right? Like the evidence has just been building and building.
Mm-hmm.
When, it's not. Like they got 4 or 5 studies that are, 100, 150 people. It's,
Right.
Or it's some online study that's an opt-in that has 90,000 people, but it's just people answering questionnaires online. They haven't got a lot of evidence. But you have Jon Stewart come in here and he talks about, well, you're going against all of these different institutions. It's the institutions don't matter. It's the evidence that matters.
Mm-hmm.
The
Right.
institutions is kind of a dodge. Yeah, when have institutions ever done anything on totally shoddy, incomplete information? Only like every fucking day. Like this is the norm for institutions. So to jump in here and say, "Oh yeah, let's just believe them," full bore without even turning our brains on. It's ridiculous. It makes Jon Stewart look like such a moron.
Well, the problem is it only makes him look like a moron if A, you understand sort of like the complicated facts behind what he's discussing, or you're already on the tribe that disagrees with him. Like he doesn't look like a moron to people that are neutral or are already on his team.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem.
I do think he looks like a moron to neutral people because I think neutral people come to this debate with what, you're pausing puberty until someone can decide what sex they are. I think the neutral position on that is you're fucking crazy. I think that's a neutral position on that. Do you disagree? I mean,
well, I agree that the neutral moral intuition, yes, is that it's crazy.
Yeah, it's fucking insane.
Right, but I think the neutral position is also, well, if they hear all the medical experts are saying X, then most people are going to go with it.
I feel most people have an intuitive understanding of psychology to the point where they understand kids say crazy shit.
Yeah, but the problem is, and we'll get into this when we watch this video. Because you said I wish Jon Stewart would talk to someone who'd offer pushback, but that's the problem. He's talking and interviewing the Attorney General of Arkansas, okay, who I should have actually read it before we did this. She talked about the brief that they created for the law that had all the sourcing information, and she does a fucking terrible job in this interview with Jon Stewart. She does an awful job in this interview with Jon Stewart. She should be either A, she should be completely knowledgeable about the facts so that she can counter what Jon Stewart's saying, or B, she shouldn't be doing this interview and should have one of her assistants or underling through the interview who does know all this stuff,
Yeah, who
who
knows
did,
his studies.
right, who did do the brief, who did all the study, who got all the studies together and could say, John, you're wrong about blah, 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 blah. This is what you're not addressing. This is what you're not addressing. Because, and now I understand that Jon Stewart probably edits the interview to make himself look smarter and her to look stupid. But bearing that aside, unless it's like so dishonestly edited that she actually counters everything and he cuts it all out, which maybe it is, but I'm skeptical that it's dishonestly edited to that degree, because then she would expose that. She's talking about that. She just does a terrible job in this interview fighting back against Jon Stewart. She just gives kind of like standard boilerplate, vague responses without saying, boom, Jon Stewart, here's the fucking study. Let me name you this. Let me cite you the source. Explains why you're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think Jon Stewart has a good grasp of any of this information either.
Yeah, I agree. Let's go.
Why would the state of Arkansas step in to override parents, physicians, psychiatrists, endocrinologists who have developed guidelines? Why would you override those guidelines?
Well, I think it's important that all of those physicians, all of those experts, for every single one of them, there's an expert that says we don't need to allow children to be able to take those medications. That there are many instances where...
But you know that's not true. You know it's not for everyone there's one. These are the established...
Well, I don't know that's not true. I don't know that...
See what he's saying? He is full of shit there, because there is literally... I'd say there's more evidence on the against side than on the pro side, to be honest with you.
Well, here's the problem. I think you're right. But see, this is where he uses sort of debate tactics. Okay. Because when and I hate this, she says for every person that's, pro one side of the trans issue on the science, there's someone that's against it. Okay. Now, this is kind of what we talked about in our conversation in the last stream. If we're being charitable, we understand that that's a figure of speech, right? That this lady probably doesn't literally mean, she wouldn't literally have the knowledge to understand that there's an exact one-for-one parity on this issue, right?
Right.
We understand that's a general statement to convey that there's a lot of people on both sides of the issue that disagree with each other in the science.
Right. The science is unsettled.
The science is not settled. But John, who's sort of using a debate tactic, sort of comes in here and says, well, wait a minute. That's not literally true. And he says, that's not literally true. Okay.
Yeah.
And it's a total debate tactic move. And if she was a little bit quicker on her feet, which, I don't know if I would have been quick enough on my feet to answer the way that you actually had the perfect answer, which is that you would say, well, no, John, I think that there's actually more evidence saying that there's more evidence saying that it's unknown or dangerous, not less. Because then you're saying there could be lots of doctors out there that are on the side of trans advocacy, but for every doctor that's on the side of trans advocacy, that doesn't mean there's one study for each of their opinions.
Yeah.
And that's where sort of the deception occurs, because the real important thing is what is important, what you're measuring is not, well, there's one doctor who's against trans stuff and there's one doctor who's for trans stuff. It's no, what do the studies say? Who cares what the doctors say? What do the studies say? And how are these studies done?
That's exactly right. It's the evidence, not the number of doctors that sign on to accept the evidence.
Right.
That's completely irrelevant. They're
Right.
trying to get to the
Because
truth value of the evidence.
right, because John is probably correct in that there are more doctors in America who are pro trans stuff than skeptical of trans stuff. I would assume that that's true, but that's irrelevant because that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about what do the studies show.
I mean, I would like to know, but I'm doubtful. I think there's
Hmm.
more doctors that are just going to keep their mouth shut and laugh at how insane this stuff is.
Yeah, but if they keep their mouth shut, then essentially they're not being counted.
Of course, yeah.
So that's,
But their opinion is that this is just bonkers.
right. But if your opinion is just exists only in your mind and no one knows about it, then it's basically irrelevant to a broader conversation.
They're like, look, I'm a cardiologist, okay? I make
Well, I mean,
$80,000 a procedure.
I mean, doctors related to transitioning, not cardiology.
Oh, well, I think any doctor that's related to transitioning is already going to be pro transitioning. Come on.
Well, not necessarily. The one of the main, what's his name? I had a bunch of notes then because we were going to do this on Tuesday and then we ended up not doing it on Tuesday. So a lot of my notes got moved. But this is crazy to me. The guy who the DSM people tapped to head up. So when the DSM-4 changed to DSM-5, they changed the diagnosis from gender identity disorder to gender dysphoria.
Right.
And the way that whenever they do any of these things, they basically get a bunch of psychiatrists, they tap a bunch of psychiatrists to basically figure out what the new guidelines are.
Right.
The people that write the
They
DSM.
poll them because they're dealing with people who experience these issues. So they're kind of asking them, what is your experience here?
Right. But it's more than just polling. They actually will get a bunch of psychiatrists that are trusted in that field of study and they, throw them in a room and they basically say, you guys figure out what we're going to put in the next DSM.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's what I mean by polling,
Right. And so the guy that they got to head up this entire thing, who's been one of the foremost experts in the field of gender dysphoria, he's skeptical of the entire thing. He's skeptical of the way it's being treated right now. He basically has my position, which is hilarious. I didn't even know about this until someone sent this to me. He's basically like, I think gender dysphoria is real. I think some people have it, but I think it's being way over treated right now.
Yeah.
And he's completely skeptical about a lot of the new science and a lot of the new, the explosion of people that are now claiming they have gender dysphoria. Because apparently, the rate of people having gender dysphoria, which is in the DSM, was less than 1%. It was 0.0 some percent. And now that rate has exploded into the single digits. And you're like, well, wait a minute. How did we go from less than 1% to single digit percentage of the entire population of the country? That's insane. That's a massive increase. That's millions of, or not millions, but thousands and maybe millions of people.
That's because we're counting people who would rather be the opposite gender, who feel like they would be happier if they're the opposite gender. Have you ever heard this idea that the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence?
Of course.
Have you heard that?
Of course.
Does that seem like something that happens a lot and is, an intricate part of human nature, that we perceive other people having a better time than we are having? How many, if you polled people and just asked them, do you think you'd be happier as the opposite gender or the opposite sex?
Mm-hmm.
I wonder what those poll numbers would be like, because I feel like that's kind of what we're determining here. We're kind of fixating on people who feel they would be happier as the opposite sex, and we're misdiagnosing many of them with something we're calling gender dysphoria.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. Well, first of all, I found the article. The guy's name is Kenneth Zucker.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently someone wrote some article that was called The Myth of Desistance. And they tried to downplay
Oh, wow.
the amount of desistance that there was,
Wow.
for people that are, identify originally as trans and then change. So then he wrote a counter article called The Myth of Persistence.
Oh, wow.
So, and his point in this article, which is a fantastic point and really, really what everyone should be shouting from the rooftops, is that when Kenneth Zucker and other people have done these like meta-analysis where they take a bunch of different studies of kids that, are being studied to see if they want to transition, that before they started giving kids puberty blockers, there's like 5 to 10 of these, studies to see how if kids desist or not. Desist means that they no longer feel like they're trans. Before they started giving kids puberty blockers, the numbers for desistance were somewhere between, if you took all these different studies, were somewhere between 60 to 90%.
Right. Which is the number she's citing here in the interview.
Right. She's giving the high end number.
Right. Obviously.
Right. But then once you get kids on puberty blockers, suddenly that number drops to like 10 or 20%.
Right.
Of kids desisting. Okay. And so that should tell you, if you're not ideologically possessed, not tribal, not brainwashed by tribalism, you would say, well, looking at that, it should be clear that the puberty blockers are probably preventing people from desisting.
A huge factor, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what Zucker says. He says this very basic thing.
Yeah.
And see, but this is why I think this lady does such a bad job. All she has to do is say that to Jon Stewart, is to bring those numbers up, bring that discrepancy up, and he doesn't have a rebuttal to that.
Yeah. This could be sunk cost fallacy as well. As soon as someone makes up the decision and are locked in, human psychology takes over.
Well, it could be. I think sunk cost might play in effect more once they've actually like start physically transitioning. I think with the puberty blockers, it's just that going through puberty probably helps people realize that they're not trans. Well, they aren't trans.
Taking puberty blockers though and socially transitioning with all your friends. There's plenty of sunk cost here.
Well, yeah, socially transitioning. That's true. There is a lot of sunk. And he actually, and Zucker does bring it up too. He does actually say that exact thing. He thinks that social transitioning does affect people's psychology and prevent them from possibly desisting.
Of course.
So, right. But that's the problem, that Jon doesn't know any of this because he has a staff of just woke idiots who just feed him a bunch of garbage and he just eats it up uncritically.
Yeah, because he's stupid.
Well, yeah, he's just brainwashed. He's just on Team Blue.
Yeah, he's an idiot.
Yeah.
Why would you pass a law then if you don't know that that's true? Wouldn't you?
Well, I know that there are doctors and that we had plenty of people come and testify before our legislature who said that we have 98% of the young people who have gender dysphoria, that they are able to move past that. And once they have the help that they need, no longer suffer from gender dysphoria. 98% without that medical treatment.
That's an incredibly made up figure.
What a fucking piece of shit. I hate Jon Stewart now with a burning fucking passion because I look at this situation. Like, you see these pictures online of these girls that have had like double mastectomies and had their fucking uterus removed. Jon Stewart has a smugness to sit here and act like he's running into burning buildings and saving fucking children, and he's not. Right. The reasonable position is, hey, let's chill out before we start cutting the body parts off of children, right?
Right.
But they make it sound like, no, we're saving lives here.
But
that's the fuck out of here.
But that's the problem, is that Jon Stewart in his own mind thinks he's saving lives.
I know. Yeah.
He buys into all this nonsense. So the way he's perceiving this conversation is, this lady who's sitting across from me, she's just a bigot. She just hates trans people. So she, wants them to suffer. She just wants them to she probably hates gay people too. She probably wants them all to just become straight heteronormative. And they're going to let all these kids basically commit suicide, or they're going to put them into Jesus conversion camps. So that justifies me being the biggest, smuggest piece of shit ever.
Yeah.
And the problem is when you act that way, when you become the biggest, smuggest piece of shit ever, it's like, well, you could be wrong though. You could be wrong, Jon. And the thing that's annoying about this conversation is that since this lady doesn't know the facts, because she's the attorney general and probably has a lot more things on her mind than this one piece of legislation that was passed. She can't respond by saying, well, what studies are you citing, Jon? Why do you think that that's a bullshit figure? Because if she asks him that, then he's going to ask her the same question. She doesn't have an answer. And so they
Yeah.
can just both talk in these vague general statements.
Yeah. This I looked at the comments beneath this video and also
Hmm.
on the Twitter responses when they tweeted it out. Oh, it's completely demoralizing.
I know
Everyone
it's just a
is
bunch of
like,
woke garbage. Yeah.
yeah, everyone is like, oh, Jon Stewart completely owned her. Thank you, John, for doing this. Oh, you're such a
Right.
hero here. Oh, we're
Well,
out here saving lives.
I mean, what would be the dream? And I don't think it would ever happen. Is it I would want Jon Stewart to talk to Jesse Single
Single, yeah, totally.
because he has all this information. And he would
Yeah.
say, "No, John, you're wrong because of blah 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 blah. Here are the studies. Here are the studies that show, what the desistance rate is."
Yep. Yeah. He'll never do that though.
That doesn't comport with any of the studies or documentation that exists from these medical organizations. What medical association are you talking about of these doctors?
Well, we have all of that in our uh, legislative history, and we'll be glad to provide that to you. I don't have the name of that off the top of my head. I know it's something that
You don't have the name of the organization that you're
off the
getting
top
that
of my
information?
head.
Oh, okay.
But yes, we have all of that cited in all of our briefs.
You're suggesting that
But see, and that's the problem too. And this is now I'm curious as to what, and when this interview was set up, I'm very curious as to what his office told her office the interview was going to be about. And what did she think it was going to be about? I mean, how could they not think that this was going to be, when it says Jon Stewart wants to interview you about this transgender
Bill.
law?
Yeah.
Like, you got to know it's going to be a attempted hip smear piece on you. Okay?
Yeah.
And so while like normally in a normal interaction, it would be totally fair for the attorney general who doesn't craft the law in the first place. Actually, I don't even know why he's asking her about this. I mean, she didn't write the law, right? She's the attorney general. So I
Yeah,
guess maybe
she's
her
just
office,
defending the law, right?
right? But though I don't know, maybe her office wrote one of the briefs, which is possible that supported the law or something. Um, so that could be a thing. But to have like it would be totally justifiable in a normal situation to be like, well, I don't have that information offhand because I'm the attorney general. But if you like read through the bill, it tells you what, or if you read through the legislative history, it tells you what this information is based off of, and then you can cite that. But Jon Stewart has no, why would he ever do that? That would just hurt his argument. He's going to instead talk to you and make you look like an idiot and make you look like you didn't know what you were talking about.
Yeah. I just love when they come in and start talking about the science as if, there wasn't a bunch of malarkey science built up around smoking
Right.
or diet or like
Yeah.
every
Diet's a
single
great one, right?
every single industry comes up with their own science that they somehow makes everything that they're doing business wise completely up and up.
Of course. Well, I mean, this is with like the what was the thing that they gave the pregnant mothers?
Thalidomide.
Yeah, this is like thalidomide. This is like shock treatment. This is like lobotomies. They used to do all these things. They thought, oh, the stuff, it shows, the science shows that this works or it's effective or it's safe. And then, you know,
All of a sudden
5 years
it
later,
doesn't.
you go, whoops, kind of a problem.
Yeah.
That's not safe. Kind of
Smoking
a big
really
deal.
is bad for you.
Right. I mean, I think it's Sweden has decided to, as an entire country, to stop giving kids puberty blockers.
Yeah.
And there's two other European countries that I think have either stopped giving kids hormone blockers or are in the process of figuring out whether they're going to keep giving kids hormone blockers. Because even the people that sort of created the Dutch protocol, which is to give kids hormone blockers for X amount of years and then transition
Yeah.
to cross-sex hormones, even the people that created that are starting to think, maybe this is not a good idea. Maybe this isn't working.
Right.
And the thing that I would levy against John is I'd say, John, has there ever been a study where, say a clinic gets 100 people, 100 kids that think they're trans, and they give 50 of those kids hormone blockers, and they give 50 of those kids placebos, or they just give 50 of those kids, nothing. They say, we're not going to give you anything. We're just going to, work with you for the coming years. We're going to let you go through puberty. Okay. So you have 50 kids that you let go through puberty and 50 kids that you block the puberty. And then you measure the distance rate between the two of them.
Yeah.
Has that ever been done? And the answer is no. And if the answer to that is no, John, then there's never been a real actual study to study any of this. And you're just talking out of your ass, and everyone else is talking out of their ass. Okay. If
Everyone
that's
is
never
talking out
been,
of their ass.
if there's never been a control group for transition therapy, then there's never been an actual study for transition
Yeah,
therapy.
you're not doing science. You're doing,
Right.
advocacy.
Right. And it's crazy to me that we live in a world where there's a control group for vaccines. Okay. So when you have something that's as tangible and like you have a virus, something you can
Right.
look at through a microscope and you say, there it is, there's the thing. Okay. Where with gender dysphoria, there's no microscope. You can't look at anything under a microscope to understand what causes gender dysphoria. Okay?
Correct.
We don't know what causes it. So why is it that when you have something, an actual virus you can see and you know, and you say, there it is, you still do a control study with your vaccine? But when it comes to something that we don't understand or know, like gender dysphoria, there can't ever be a control study.
Even if you want to say, oh, because the stakes are too high, this motherfucker, the stakes are just as high with the vaccine. Like those
Exactly.
people could fucking die.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like even in the middle of the COVID crisis, we had a global.
I
You're telling me
know.
the stakes are too high. We're in the fucking global pandemic, and they were still doing control studies.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's
Okay.
completely ridiculous.
Right.
Yeah.
Don't tell me the stakes are high, John. Get the fuck out of here with that weak shit.
But it's
Yeah, the stakes-
children. Look, you don't understand the stakes. It's children. We have to transition all of these people. We have to cut off all their body parts. That's
Yeah.
the prudent thing to do here, Sitch.
The stakes are high. You're right. The stakes are high. The stakes are that people could make a mistake
Yes.
and end up,
mutilating
transitioning
themselves.
and mutilating themselves and becoming sterile and creating a lifelong, health problems that they didn't need to create. Yeah, the stakes are very high, John. And I'm the one that's saying we need to actually get to the bottom of it before we start doing this wholesale.
Yeah.
And you're the one that's just putting your fingers in your ears, closing your eyes and saying, blue team go, blue team go.
Right. We've already done the studies. What, where is this? Why are you citing fake studies, Republican lady?
Protecting children means overriding the recommendations of the American Medical Association, the American Association of Pediatrics, the Endocrine Society.
We don't have enough data. We don't have enough to show that these drugs are effective and that these children are better off, and that we should
You don't have
encourage
enough,
these.
or it's not enough for you. Let me try.
Oh my God, what a dick. What a dick. What? Yeah, we don't have enough. You asshole.
Right.
Like,
But this is-
obviously John has enough for him, but I don't think John actually knows how much data we have, how little information we have on this situation.
No, he doesn't understand any of what's going on.
Yeah. He's like,
He doesn't understand any of
a
what's going
coin flip is enough for old John Stewart.
Try and flip it a different way and see if maybe this can help. In Arkansas, if you have pediatric cancer, and obviously we all want to protect children, I think we established that earlier. Whose guidelines do you follow for pediatric cancer?
Well, I think if
This is such a stupid question.
It is,
Well, first
I
of all,
know.
with the previous question, she should have asked, well, what is the AMA or whoever, what are they basing their guidelines off of? What are the studies they're basing their guidelines off of, John? Because he doesn't know.
Yeah, he doesn't know. Could have thrown it right in his face.
But see, that's the problem, because then if he doesn't know, then this is how you handle the situation. If he doesn't know, and she came prepared, she'd say, well, guess what? Boom, she whips out a paper. I do know what their guidelines are.
Yeah,
based off of.
exactly.
It's based off this study or these studies. And these studies I don't feel properly addressed because blah, 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 blah. So then she crumples up the paper and she throws it at his head.
This is such a rigged game, though, because that never sees the light of day if that happens. Like,
You're right.
They
It's
would
true.
just find some, like, who knows how many people they interviewed that didn't fuck up this bad, that they didn't include because obviously they knew their stuff.
Right. That's true. But see, if you're the attorney general or you're some politician and you're going to get interviewed by like a party that you know is going to be, what's the word?
You're saying everyone should be ready, but I just
No,
we
I'm
don't
saying
live in
like
that world.
that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if you know that you're going to be interviewed by a hostile or potential hostile interviewer,
Right.
they should only agree to that and say, okay, I'll do that, but I'm going to film the whole thing as well.
Yeah, I hope she filmed the whole thing as well.
Right. In case it is dishonestly edited. Because there was that situation like with who's that
Yeah,
There's that Australian guy
that happens all the time. Yeah.
where he was interviewed. I forgot who he was interviewed. He was interviewed by one of these Jon Stewart clones. The Jon Stewart clones clipped and cut his entire interview up to make this guy look like he was saying all this crazy shit he wasn't saying. And he said, "Fuck you! I secretly recorded the interview, and
Yeah, and he
I'm exposing
released
you
it.
for being a liar." Yeah, and he released it.
I think that guy lost his show over it too, which was great.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, that show's not on the air. I don't know if it was because of that
Screw
incident.
these deceptive editors.
But regarding the second question about the cancer thing, that's a very stupid question, and she's not going to give the correct answer. The correct answer would be cancer is not politicized, John, at
Yeah.
all. There's no political thought. There's no tribal ideology that's motivating people's opinions on it one way or the other. And so it's more likely that we'll trust the doctor's opinions. They could still be wrong, but we're more likely to trust their opinions are being driven by objective fact, not by politics.
That's true. Yeah, that's a great point. Well, also, I hate the cancer example because, like I've said many times, we have tests for cancer. We put cancer under the microscope. We know
Right.
what it looks like. We've had decades and decades of study around cancer. This
Right.
is something that's like effectively the rates have jumped astronomically just over the past few years. We don't
Right.
have the kind of experience with this treatment plan or what's going on here. We don't have any of that experience with this situation. To compare it to cancer is just, I mean, it's
Right.
ridiculous.
That's actually, you know what? That's probably a better answer than my answer because you just say, listen, you look under a microscope and you can see the cancer cells. Okay. You can't look under a microscope and see the gender dysphoric cells. Okay. That is, you're relying on someone's self-reporting, which is one of the most unreliable ways to measure anything ever.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a horrible comparison. It's a terrible comparison.
My child, who is 4, if I was faced with that terrible decision, then I would be speaking to my doctor. And if my doctor recommended something that I disagreed with, then I would get a second opinion. And that's what I believe that these parents need to make sure that they're encouraged to get numerous opinions when they're talking about an irreversible step.
You're
in
not
their
letting
child's
them.
care.
The state's not saying get another opinion. What they're saying is you can't. What you're actually saying
No,
is
that's
the opposite.
actually not at all what the state said. The state simply said that you cannot perform these procedures, and so parents should get another opinion, and children should want to have another
But
opinion.
that's not-
Because again,
She gives literally like the worst possible answer you could possibly give for the situation.
What's
What
wrong
the
with
fuck
it?
is this? Because she's like, because she says, well, you should get a second opinion. And then John is right, because the law doesn't give you a second opinion. The law says the Arkansas law prevents doctors from giving kids puberty blockers or surgery or cross-sex hormones to anyone under the age of 18.
Right.
So it's just a flat out ban. It has nothing to do with a second opinion. She's just wrong. She's literally wrong here. And so since she's just completely wrong, she allows herself to walk into this trap where John says, well, no, you're not. What are you talking about second opinion? This has nothing to do with second opinion. You're just saying kids can't do it till they're 18.
Right.
So she just gives, this is a terrible answer that she's given.
these are 9, 10, 11,
So if your
12-year-olds.
child is suffering from pediatric cancer,
I fucking hate the cancer. So it drives me crazy. Because he's basically making a one-for-one comparison between gender dysphoria, something we know absolutely nothing about, and cancer, which we know so much about. And
Right.
also, it's just, it's an objective, measurable thing. It's not a subjective, internal feeling.
and the
Yeah.
state comes in and says to you, they recommend chemotherapy, but we're not going to let you do that. You can't. We think you should get a different opinion.
I mean, it says everything about Jon Stewart's frame of mind. Like, he thinks the whole gender dysphoria debate is as
It's
settled,
settled,
as cancer is.
Right.
He thinks it's as serious as cancer.
Right.
And here's the organization we think you should get the opinion from.
And the problem is that when this all changes in 5 years or so,
Oh, I'm saving this video right here. I'm going to
He-
send it to fucking Jon Stewart every day.
He's not gonna, none of the people that were on the side are gonna admit fault.
No.
No, at all. So,
Here's
Or
your
not the mainstream.
detransitioner video for the day, you piece of shit.
right.
But they're an organization. So that's who you have to be treated by. Does that sound like something you would
Well, I
accept?
think that's a very extreme example. That's not at all in line with what we're talking about. We're not saying that at some point, because when you have cancer, it literally is, and particularly pediatric cancer, and having friends that have lost children
Sure.
to pediatric cancer, having a 4-year-old, I'm sure.
I've got some bad news for you. Parents with children who have gender dysphoria have lost children to suicide.
What a smug piece of shit. I fucking hate this guy so bad.
And depression.
They
This is, you don't understand. This is serious. People have lost kids.
Yeah, but that's the problem is that he is operating under the delusion that he's completely in the right here,
Yeah.
that he's acting this complete side of justice. When it's like, no, there's all these people that are going to be, that are going to, all these adults, all these parents are going to lose their kids because they transitioned when they didn't need to.
Jesse Single talks about the suicide. It's difficult to break suicide down to a single factor, but you know
Right.
the trans activists are always going to blame the gender dysphoria. Like they could be depressed, they could have all sorts of other issues going on,
Right.
and turn to gender dysphoria as some sort of treatment for some other thing, which
Sure.
is probably going on a lot. So there's this misdiagnosis situation. So the person ends up committing suicide because of some other factor, and then obviously the gender dysphoria is blamed, which allows this smug asshole to sit here and go, parents have lost children because of this. I just
Well, right.
I would like to see the actual numbers.
It's not even clear how much transitioning even helps against committing suicide in modern, under the modern framework of people transitioning more than they ever did.
So many of these detransitioners talk about being suicidal, and why wouldn't you be?
Right. Right.
Why wouldn't you be? If you basically were turned over to the medical industry and they destroyed your life before you even had a driver's license, what the fuck? You'd be completely demoralized.
Right. Well, here's what I'd ask John. I'd say, why does suicide rate in children go from like nothing to suddenly jumping up super high in middle school and high school? Like, why is there this massive jump in suicides for teenagers when before they're teenagers there's like nothing? It's very low.
Right.
And the answer to that is because that's when they're going through puberty.
Well,
You have all
yeah.
these chemicals that are starting to surge through your brain that are changing the way you think. And very often, especially when you're going through puberty, there are times when your brain is going to be unbalanced and you're not gonna have control of your emotions, you're not gonna have control of your thoughts, and there's a lot of wacky shit going on inside your head at
Yeah.
that time. Okay. And so if you have a lot of people are having emotional problems, having anxiety that they never experienced before, having suicidal thoughts they never experienced before, because they're going through puberty, and then you give them puberty blockers, guess what happens? Well, those
Yeah.
thoughts go away. Those feelings go away. And then they're just say, oh, I guess I really did have gender dysphoria because when I took the puberty blockers,
Oh,
I
that's
suddenly feel way
so-
better.
That's so true. Yeah, testosterone evidently gets you high too, makes you feel invincible. It's a lot like
Sure, yeah.
speed.
Of course it does. Of course.
So-
And then you start giving girls testosterone on top of that makes
Yeah.
them feel better.
Yeah, it's completely sick.
It's so stupid. It's like this is the problem. It's just so fucking it's so obvious.
Yeah.
And yet we can't talk about it because people are being brainwashed by tribalism.
Yeah, in real
essentially.
time.
To ignore what is obvious in front of their face.
You're also at that point in life, that's when you're really building your identity. You're trying to discover, who are your friends going to be? What are you going to dress like? You're individuating from your parents. You're thinking about, jobs for the future, schools for the future. It's a it's a torturous, tumultuous time. So a lot is going on. And then to throw this stuff on top of it, oh, it's so crazy.
I know.
Because
Absolutely
it's
have.
acute. And so these mainstream medical organizations have developed guidelines through peer-reviewed data and studies. And through those guidelines, they've improved mental health outcomes. So I'm confused why you follow AMA guidelines and AAAP guidelines for all other health issues in Arkansas, because we checked, but not for this.
When I see this, I just think Jon Stewart sucking like the big tobacco lobby company's dick, like
Right.
sucking the oil company's dick. Like all he's doing is citing completely biased science that's in the favor of these communities that are making a shitload of money off of this stuff. And in any other situation, he'd see right through it, but he's just too blinded by tribalism to understand.
Well, yeah, and I mean the problem is that people trust institutions and they trust things that they've always trusted until they see a reason not to trust it. So because John is basically operating in the dark here, he's still in the matrix. He doesn't have any reason to not trust these organizations. He hasn't seen the light on any of this stuff. And
Yeah.
I mean, the light for a lot of this stuff for me and a lot of other people is this issue, is the transgender issue.
Yep. Yeah, of course. You you were very right to point out that the situation is that it's politicized in a way that cancer research is not politicized.
Yes.
So that's a giant part of it.
I mean, a lot of the trans stuff, even though I was sort of like, my breaking out of the matrix was really pre the trans stuff. It was really with Gamergate and sort of the free speech stuff, and sort of like the weird radical feminism. But I was somewhat fortunate because the trans stuff really helped like solidify, breaking out of the matrix, because I had a background where all throughout high school and college, I studied psychology, and I was always fascinated with body and gender dysphoria and body dysmorphia. And so it was a subject I was like had like a lot more innate knowledge about, not innate, but I had a lot more knowledge about going into it than like the average person would ever go into it with. And so when I started to see these weird conversations about gender dysphoria, I'm like, wait, what the fuck are these people talking about? This is a mental illness. Like, what do they mean it's an identity? So like from the get-go, I was already like, wait a minute, what is happening? This is so bizarre and weird.
Yeah, you never say something like that about anorexia or bulimia or
Yeah,
any
exactly.
of those things.
Depression, anxiety. But that's the problem, is that like 99% of the people don't have that. They didn't come, they just came out of it from nowhere. They didn't know anything about this stuff until it was publicized and politicized, essentially.
Yeah.
Until, Caitlyn Jenner came out and was like,
oh yeah,
poster child for all this stuff.
That didn't help.
No, I mean, she was a poster child for all this stuff.
Simply saying, let those young people who are facing gender confusion and dysphoria, allow them to become adults and to make that decision. Allow a child to be a child.
So here's where we have our crossroads. You've made the determination that protecting these children means not giving them access to the guidelines and care that have been designed by medical and mental health professionals for children expressing gender dysphoria. And
so here's what she should have said. I pulled up, I've been looking for the bill the whole time. I finally found the bill. One of the first lines in the bill says, according to the American Psychiatric Association, for natal adult males, prevalence ranges for gender dysphoria is from 0.005% to 0.014%.
That's pretty small.
And for females, it's 0.002%.
0.002%.
Yes, two zeros to 0.003%.
Wow.
Okay, so it's some insanely small number. Okay, so you say, John, you want to talk about guidelines according to the people who write the frickin' DSM, the American Psychiatric Association. According to their research, the rate is 0.002 to 0.003 for women. Okay, that number has now increased to whatever it is, to 1 or 2 1% of women are now identifying as having gender dysphoria. Okay, you're telling me, John, that you don't think a massive increase from 0.002 to 1%.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, I don't know what that is. That's like a, like,
That's
so
like
it's like a,
thousands of percent.
yeah,
Yeah.
like a 10,000% increase or something, like 1,000% increase, whatever that is. You're telling me you don't think that's suspicious? That doesn't merit, some research before you start giving kids, experimental drugs?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. You're talking about what institutions? There's your institution, John. That's the APA. They're the ones that write the guidelines.
Didn't he? I mean, he did that thing with 9/11, the 9/11 commission. Didn't a bunch of insurance companies who didn't want to pay medical come out and
Hmm.
say, "Oh yeah, there was no problem with the air quality down in
In the crater.
right."
Yeah, when the people were
How
firemen were
was
pulling people out of the. So yeah.
how was John Stewart able to see through that nonsense? Like, but he can't see that this is like
Hmm.
just as nonsensical.
Well, I assume what he would say is that with the insurance companies, there's an obvious profit motive, and
What do you
where
think is going on with the medical community here?
well, you could say that with the doctors, it would be less clear whether who, like, the American Pediatric Association. Like, I understand, I agree with what you're saying. I do think that there is a lot of profit motive that is driving these organizations that are made up of doctors who prescribe these treatments and do these treatments. But it's a little bit, it's like a step removed, and I think that step removed would allow John to sort of exist in the mental fog of ignoring that as a possibility.
Right. I just don't see
So,
it. I mean, even if they're just going to therapists to talk about this stuff, they're
right.
being charged for visits. They're being billed from their insurance company.
Sure.
Come talk to me about your gender dysphoria, right?
The law says between 2015 and 2016, gender reassignment surgeries increased by 20%. So I'm curious as to what it is in 2022.
I mean, I have listened to a lot of these videos that are people who claim to be therapists who specialize in gender dysphoria. And when they talk about how you know if you have gender dysphoria, as someone who's read a lot of psychology, just
It's terrible.
it
Yeah.
is terrible.
Yeah.
Yes.
Scary.
It seems they don't seem to understand how the human mind works. They don't understand priming or any of the just basic psychology stuff.
Hmm.
It's oh man, it's so weird.
I got to see if I can find the briefs because they're not
From the
attached to the law.
oh okay. Yeah.
Because I'm curious, because like and with the Texas, when the Texas executive order was passed, that they were trying to classify um, transitioning as child abuse, which is something I don't agree that they should have done. If they want to pass a law, they could pass a law, but I don't think you should be able to do it through executive order.
Right.
Um,
Well, and ban it. I mean, don't call it. Why do they need to call it child abuse? Why don't they just ban the
well,
procedure?
because
Say we don't have enough evidence for this.
because it wasn't a law, they were trying. This was the only way they could try to do it through an executive action, because they had to find an executive administration like Child Protective Services that they had the power to make such a blanket ruling on. So that's why they had to do it that way. But even though I disagree with that executive order, and maybe because it's executive order, not a law, they did a good job because that executive order has like so much of like the research and so much of the information of why they're trying to make the determination that they're making. Like, it's all right there for you to look at.
Yeah,
So
if you had it.
I'm
Yeah.
asking you again, what are your qualifications to step in and say, no, keeping you from that care is protecting you. You've made that determination.
Well, these are irreversible decisions that these children at these young ages are making, or that their
They're not
parents are
making a
making.
decision. You're making it sound like a 9-year-old walks into a doctor's office and says, give me some testosterone. And the doctor goes, oh, thank God, because we're wanting to create an army of transgenders because we're crazy. And they go right in like,
No, we passed a law to protect the children in Arkansas, and I think that's what is important.
again,
she's so bad at this. She's so bad at this.
But
Because it's like, no, what's happening is that you have a bunch of doctors who either A, they're financially incentivized to prescribe treatments that they'll make lots and lots of money off of.
Right.
Or they're just cowed into this via politics and are too afraid to stand up to it.
Yeah.
And you're wrong, John, because you're sitting here and you think, and you don't know what you're talking about, John. You're sitting here and you think that a child goes into a psychologist or psychiatrist's office and the psychiatrist says, okay, before I prescribe you hormone blockers, before we have any of these things, I'm going to talk to you for the next 6 months. Okay. We're going to have 6 months to a year's worth of therapy, or we're going to try to figure out whether you have gender dysphoria, or we're going to try to see if there's something else going on in your life. Okay. That's not happening, John.
Nope.
That's not happening. Well, that idea you have in your mind is not real. That's not what's happening. What's happening is that basically people are going to these offices, and that's what used to happen. That's what used to happen years ago. But what's happening now is people go in these offices, and on the first or second or maybe the third visit, they're able to write them a prescription for hormone blockers under this false, insane notion that either A, hormone blockers are completely safe, and B, they have no effect on you, which is literally the stupidest thing I could possibly think of. It's just a pause button. It's going to change the way you think. And that's pretty important when you're talking about a mental illness and trying to figure out the best way to solve that mental illness. That's a pretty important thing. Because what if there is an alternative? What if when someone goes through puberty naturally, it does desist? That's kind of a lot easier pathway of dealing with gender dysphoria than transitioning.
Yeah. Yeah. Smug Man doesn't think that way, though.
No.
He's got all the answers.
He has no clue. He has no clue how this works.
Yeah, that's why this video is insane.
Yeah.
You have the most clueless person in the world being a smug fuck. It's like internet gold.
The medical community disagrees with you that
Well,
that's
not all of the
protecting
medical
children.
community.
Who doesn't?
We have had experts testify here in Arkansas.
Okay, from what medical organizations?
Well, we have all of those in our briefs, and I apologize that I wasn't prepared to have a Supreme Court argument today in front of you, but we are going.
What a fucking dick. What a dick.
Mm-hmm.
What a dick. Look at him. He's doing the big sigh. Oh, geez.
Right.
Like, maybe you could have told her. Maybe you could have given her the questions in advance. I mean, if you wanted real answers here, John, this is so performative.
Yeah, but
Look
see,
at
that's the thing is
this.
I don't, that's why I said I'm curious as to what his office told her office this interview was going to be about.
Yes. Yeah. No, if you wanted her to have actual answers, John, you could have given her the questions you were going to ask in advance.
Yeah, but she really dropped the ball on this one.
Look at this.
She should be prepared for this conversation.
Look at this performative fucking sigh here, Sitch. It's hilarious.
Oh no, I know it's all
we have all of those in our briefs, and I apologize that I wasn't prepared to have a Supreme Court argument today in front of you, but we are going to have arguments.
Right, but she should have been prepared. This is a colossal fuck up on her end.
What a dipshit.
This is a super big fuck up on her end.
Stop giving Jon Stewart a pass. You know,
I'm not giving Jon Stewart a pass.
Engineered.
I'm not giving Jon Stewart any pass whatsoever. Okay.
Jon Stewart obviously knows the bill. He's the one looking at her because
he doesn't know what the briefs were.
Oh,
okay. He didn't do any You think they did any modicum of research on it? They don't even understand the issue they're debating. Okay. His staff, they found a bunch of nonsensical, those articles you've all read a million times, which say all the same garbage about transitioning a million times. They didn't do any actual research on this.
Right. He's got a BuzzFeed article.
Right. Unless his office lied to her about what the nature of this conversation was, which they didn't. They probably just gave some very general statement like, Jon Stewart wants to interview you about, HB 1570, preventing kids from transitioning bill. He wants to talk to you about this. I bet you that's all it was. It was just a very vague general statement. Okay. She should have been prepared for that conversation. She should have either been prepared herself or said, you can talk to my assistant who is much more knowledgeable about the specifics of this bill than I am.
Yeah, that's what I would have done.
That's what she should have done. She should have said, here's a person that wrote the brief. That's what she should have done. Here's the person who headed up the team that wrote the brief.
Yeah, there's
You'll
plenty
have all
of
your
room
information
right
you
there
wanna
in the
know.
shot.
Okay.
He could have been sitting right next to it.
Right. Oh yeah, you're right. They both could have had the conversation. because she would have sat there to give legitimacy to the conversation, and then she said she would defer that information to this guy, say, well, he wrote it.
Yeah.
Explain this to Jon Stewart. And then that person explains to Jon Stewart, and then they can have an actual conversation. And Jon Stewart looks like a fucking buffoon because he's talking to some person who actually knows what the fuck they're talking about. And this interview goes completely the other direction. And then if Jon Stewart tries to dishonestly edit it, or he buries it and never sees the light of day, then she fucking releases it and says, I blew the fuck out of Jon Stewart and he didn't play the interview because he got destroyed.
I know this is like a major opportunity missed.
Yes.
She could have done that even if they didn't drop the video and it would have totally gone viral. Oh, yeah.
And you know what? You bet. I don't know if Arkansas, the attorney general, was elected, but fuck, she would be like a hero. She would never lose an election after that.
I think attorney general is elected.
It depends on most states. It is.
Okay.
But not for all states. Some of them are appointed. So she would have been a fucking hero at that point. This would have been the biggest boon to her political career, and now instead it's like a total fuck up for her political career.
It's an L, a big L.
A huge L.
Damn.
It's on this case
Right.
when the time comes.
All right, Jon Stewart's an a-hole. Super chats.
Super chats. So I'll probably find more information from the briefs that were filed when they tried to get an injunction against this law.
Bring it on Sunday. It'll be great.
Christian Baller for $2 says, Sitch, you didn't show my newest Adam art. Listen, I wanted desperately to show your art, Christian.
Maybe next Tuesday, if we're feeling it. But Christian,
Adam refused. I sent it to Adam. I literally sent it to Adam and I said, show this. And he refused.
I mean, I question whether or not art is the right term for what that stuff is, to be honest with you.
We're talking about trans issues. We should bring it up. I mean, it's relevant, isn't it?
Super chats.
So Christian made a face swap of a lady who's dressed like Tifa, not Sammy, but another lady dressed like Tifa, and he face swapped Adam onto it, and it looks very funny. And Adam is a party pooper and refused to bring it up. Danimal the Bruce for $20 says, it's the same thing with people upset about media personality Alex Jones getting bodied and held accountable for defamation after calling for media accountability for lying since the beginning of the Trump administration. I obviously people tend to throw their principles out the window as soon as it's inconvenient to have them. So that's an interesting argument. I'll be honest, I have not followed the Alex Jones trial anywhere near enough to make an intelligent opinion or judgment on whether on any of that, except for that. I mean, obviously the amount of money seems you saw the ruling. The amount of money seems to be totally like insane, like way too much money. The Connecticut is like, how about $1 billion? Right. He's not a billionaire, right? Yeah, that was part of the trial, was that they were fighting over, how much he actually has. Right. But even with that, was that just what the jury decided? Is it going to get reduced by the judge? Oh, I'm sure it's going to get reduced. Because I'm assuming that there's some sort of cap. Like, I don't think a jury can just say you owe $1 billion to someone, right? It was like $967 million, which is just shy of $1 billion. So there was one judgment that was $4 million. And then one judgment that was $967 million. Mm-hmm. It's like laughable by comparison, right? Oh, okay. But no, so yeah, obviously that amount of money, regardless of whether he's guilty or innocent, because I don't have anywhere near enough information to say whether he's guilty or innocent of these crimes. I haven't been following any of those. Well, the point. But I was just going to say, regardless of whether he's guilty or innocent, that amount of money is just obviously astronomically insane. That's just way too much money. The point is, he's being brought up on charges for spreading misinformation. Right. Something that... Well, and also, it caused harassment towards them, right? It's not just that he was spreading misinformation. It's that the misinformation caused harassment. The point is, families. Trump went around for 4 years talking about the fake news, the fake news media, the fake news liars, fake news, spreading fake news.
And Alex Jones is convicted of spreading fake news, and
Right.
like,
Well, that's Danimal's point.
you're
Is
either
that
against, yeah.
right? Is
I
that
thought it's
Alex
Super
Jones and the
Chat.
right has been calling for media accountability, and this is an example of media accountability. And because it's not conforming to people's political positions, they get mad about
Right.
it. Right.
What
But
they
again, I
mean
don't
is
know
they
enough about
want
the case to know if I agree with that statement or not.
what they really mean is we want accountability for their side,
Of course, that's what everyone always
and
thinks.
my side. Well, well,
Hmm.
well. I don't have a side, so I want accountability for everyone.
Sure.
Fuck all you liars, especially you, Jon Stewart. You piece of shit.
Well, I mean, that would be fascinating if people that have trans regret issues start suing like the newspapers and the media.
Mark your calendars,
That would be
okay?
interesting. Yeah, that'd be fun.
Because I've tilted into hatred now. This is like
Mm.
full hatred of Jon Stewart.
Mm.
Get a really crappy picture of him here.
Rico Zoro, thanks so much for the 5 gifted subs. Thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome.
If you're gonna basically get triggered over me you can't get triggered over me saying I don't know enough to make a judgment. I'm just explaining what one side's position is. Okay. I said I don't know. I don't know whether Alex Jones is in the right or the wrong.
You want it.
Okay.
This is
People get it's like no, but this is the height. This is how you know you're literally existing in cognitive dissonance NPC land. If me simply explaining what the other side's position is gets you upset, then you're in cognitive dissonance NPC elephant land. I don't know if they're true or not. I'm just explaining what their argument is.
How come when I bring up Peter Zahan, though, you don't say, well, I don't really have enough information to really make a informed judgment here. You know, I'm going to hold off. But when we're talking about Danimal Super Chat, it's very important that you let everyone know that you don't have enough information to make a judgment.
With the Alex, that's a good question. I'll answer it. So with the Zahan thing, I believe I know enough about the way in which the world works to make a judgment call about that. Okay. With this, I don't know the specific facts of the case. I don't know what exactly Alex Jones said. I don't know what he didn't say. I don't know how long he said what he said.
You didn't even
I don't know any
about
of the facts
global piracy 5
stuff.
minutes ago.
Okay, you're strawmanning me.
I know,
you're strawmanning me.
But it's fun though.
I know because I said I knew obviously that global piracy exists.
Didn't you see the movie? What's a Tom Hanks movie?
I am the captain now. Yes. I said I don't know how much.
Look at me, Sitch. I'm the captain now.
I just said I don't know how much the U.S. military's military budget is spent on fighting global piracy, and I'd be shocked if it's some massive amount of money. If it's some massive not massive amount of money, 'cause I'm sure it is, a massive percentage of our military budget, I don't think goes to fighting piracy. I could be totally wrong, but I'm skeptical.
You are totally wrong, but anyway.
Okay. Well, what is the
Chris
information?
Jones
What is the number? What is the number, Adam?
I don't know. We'll watch a Peter Zahan.
Jack H, thanks so much for joining the free well seekers. You're like skipping ahead, so I don't know where you are. Xerxes, thanks so much for being a 7-month free will seeker. Says, hey guys, I'm back from a 2-month long internet break. I'm currently catching up on all the streams I missed. Still love your work. Good to be back. Well, that's good. I hope your mental state of mind is better for being off the internet for 2 months. That's probably a very good idea.
Wow. I'm envious.
Yes. Lucifer Doman for 5 Canadian says, very interesting Oh, there was that one. That was Lucifer Doman entering on cognitive dissonance land. Someone says that you should watch the full episode of this with Jon Stewart. It's so much worse. I would love to watch it. I don't know if we can watch on stream because I'm pretty sure we'll get flagged for copyright if we watch, because we can only watch this because it's on YouTube already.
Do we have do you have to get Apple TV? How do you?
Yeah, you have to get Apple
Look,
TV.
I'm not signing up for Apple TV so I can watch this piece of shit.
Well, I would sign up for it if we could stream it. We can't stream it.
Yeah, I don't think we can either.
Right. We'll get hit. Though there was another clip
God.
that was short than
Andrew Clark. Yes. Coming in with the stats. Andrew Clark for $2. Piracy costs global shipping $9 billion each year.
Whoa,
Ooh,
whoa, whoa, whoa. That doesn't even remotely help what we're asking for.
it does. What are you
No,
talking
it
about?
doesn't.
That
Wait,
blows
wait.
you away.
No, it doesn't. What was I literally just said? I said, I don't think it's that much money. Then I said, well, actually, I'm sure it's a lot of money. What would you need to see is how much of a percentage of our military budget is spent on that. And then you give me a number at 9 billion, which is not a percentage of our military budget, but you said 9 billion to global shipping, not to how much it costs our military. Okay. So the question I asked you was how much of our military budget goes to fighting piracy? What percentage?
The Biden-Harris administration submitted to Congress a proposal fiscal year 2023 budget request, $813 billion for national defense.
That doesn't help.
773 billion of which is for the Department of Defense, DoD. Well, that's quite a bit more than 9 billion, but
Yeah.
I mean,
But that 9 billion isn't even the military. He said it's the numbers from cost global shipping. What does that mean?
from piracy, from people stealing
Yeah,
their
but that's
shit.
not how much that means. That means that global shipping, if that means that number, unless I'm
Mhm.
misunderstanding what that number means in the way that you worded that, Andrew, that means that it costs private businesses $9 billion a year. Like that's how
Right.
much they lose to piracy. That's not the question. The question is how much does the U.S. spend protecting shipping from piracy? Okay.
Right.
Because unless that number is way more than the 9 billion, then obviously it's profitable, right?
800 billion we spend.
That's for the entire military. That's not 800 billion on just stopping piracy.
Well, I mean, that's all the military really does is stop piracy.
Okay, whatever.
I don't
If
know.
someone has that
Come
number,
on.
because I Google searched how much of our military budget goes to fighting piracy, and I thought that would be a pretty like easy thing to find, but apparently it's not.
I'll see
So
if I can find a Peter Zahan video for next Tuesday so we
okay,
can watch it together
I
and
am
Sitch
curious
can
as to
like
what this is. So
Sitch can beat him up.
say this is dumb.
There's one video here that's recent that says what I got wrong about Ukraine, which I'll probably watch after we're
Is that a
done here.
Zahan video you're saying?
Yeah. What I got wrong about
There's
Ukraine, Peter Zahan.
there's two John Stewart videos about this that are 3 minutes each.
This is the good one though. Come on,
Okay,
we got to move on. I got work to do.
right.
These comics don't draw themselves, guys.
Thanks so much for being a freedom seeker for 4 months. Says, am I crazy or was Stewart and Colbert? Was I crazy or was Stewart and Colbert supposed to be the opposite side of the political spectrum, but now they both seem like they're mostly the same? Well, you were a little crazy, Zoom. I'm going to assume that you were very young when Colbert was on,
Yeah.
because Colbert was a parody show where he would pretend to be a far
A
right
conservative, yeah.
conservative talk show pundit, and he would say things that were so stupid and over the top, like he was basically pretending to be a straw man of a conservative. Is what he was doing. So
Yeah.
that's not what he's pretending to do. That's what he was doing. He was playing a straw man of a conservative for TV. So he was playing a pretend straw man version of what's his name? Who's that big right wing guy that doesn't have
Rush
a TV show
Limbaugh?
anymore? No,
Who cares?
the guy that Tucker took over his spot.
Who cares? Chris Jones for 7 months.
I care. What are you talking about?
I don't know.
How do you not know this?
Bill O'Reilly.
Bill O'Reilly, thank you.
How do
Bill
you
O'Reilly.
like? Why am I? Why am I
I blank on names.
Why am I the names guy?
Because I need you to be the name guy. I'm bad on names. I need you to be the name guy.
I
Dan
was happy
Oldenburg-
that you got Jesse's single right finally. So
I
you're
did.
making
I did.
progress.
Listen, Jesse, I love you, but you should spell your name correctly. Okay.
His blog. As soon as you read his blog, I don't. Do you subscribe to his blog? His blog is called Single Minded, which I don't. It just doesn't make sense any other way.
He should just spell his name correctly. Is that so hard?
Okay.
Just write your name so that it's Single. Jesse Single.
Signal Minded doesn't really.
Not Singal. Come on. What are we doing here? It makes sense. Anyways,
Chris
Chris
Jones.
Jones, thanks so much for being free here for 7 months. Says, don't care about Trump. Well, that's good. Wasn't it Biden cucking us to Saudis by stifling domestic oil production? Why should Saudis help Biden after the Khashoggi and Iran deal? Well, again, as I said, I don't think. First of all, I've actually heard two things. I've seen articles, and I haven't researched any of this, so maybe it's wrong, but I've seen articles that actually say that Biden has actually increased increased oil production in America more than Trump did in the first years of his presidency. So the whole idea
What?
about that's not true. Supposedly, I haven't researched it, so who knows? Um, but also I talked about why that wouldn't really help the price of oil that much. So, uh,
Andrew Clark for $5.
well, no, I was gonna say about the Khashoggi thing, but wait a minute. So since Trump was president during the Khashoggi thing,
I do remember
and we
Biden like complaining about Khashoggi.
yeah, but that doesn't matter. If I'm Biden, I say, so what? Trump was president. Trump was the leader of America. That means America gave you a pass on Khashoggi. Okay, just because I'm president now doesn't mean you get to renege on that. Okay,
But I do remember
we still gave you a
Biden.
pass on Khashoggi. You fucking piece of shit.
Biden didn't give him a pass on Khashoggi.
Yes,
though.
America gave him a pass on Khashoggi.
Trump gave him a pass on Khashoggi.
America gave him a pass
But
on.
Biden
That's how
was
you're
sitting,
missing.
Biden
You're
was
missing
like
the point.
kicking rocks, going,
You're
"Oh my
missing, You're
god,
completely missing the point.
Khashoggi."
I'm talking about how.
I understand. I know what you're
Yeah.
saying.
Okay,
You're
but that's
saying
how Biden
America,
should phrase it, right?
Yeah, but it would make Biden look contradictory because everyone
I'm not
knows
saying this. He says this publicly. This is in his conversation with the fucking guy.
they would pull
He's
the
not gonna
clip.
publicly say that, right?
They would pull the clip of Biden when Khashoggi got axed. Biden was on the news talking about.
Okay. Yes, obviously, I'm not saying he should say. You're right. He couldn't say this publicly because people are too stupid to have that conversation and
Right.
too tribal to have that conversation.
Of
But when he
course.
has a conversation privately with the Saudis, this is what he says to them. He says, "Fuck you. America gave you a pass on this stuff."
Right.
Okay.
And then the Saudis would pull out their iPad and they would go, "Look, we have this
They're
clip
gonna-
here on YouTube right here. Look,
Right.
what are you saying about Khashoggi? You
That's
fucking
exactly
piece
it.
of shit."
That's how the conversations work. Yeah, and then he says, "Oh, well, then I guess we're gonna stop giving you weapons to Yemen.
Right.
I guess we're gonna stop helping you. I guess you can go fuck off."
He
and then die.
can't. He can't do that though because
Why
it's the independent weapons manufacturers that are doing it. It's like the United States government isn't making the weapons and selling them. It's our industry.
That is
it's
not
Wall Street.
I don't think no, that's not true. They need government approval to do all these things.
Do they?
Yeah.
You mean they can't just go sell weapons to
Yes,
somebody?
yes. You can't wait a minute. Yeah, gun manufacturers.
God,
can't
all
just
these
go wherever they want.
regulations.
Yes.
All these
They can't just sell weapons. You can't like the gun
all
manufacturers.
these
can't just
business
say,
regulations. We're way overregulated here.
Okay, yeah, like the American weapons manufacturers can't just say, "Oh, I'm gonna sell like whatever we make. Let me sell to North Korea our top secret, stealth planes." Like obviously, this all has to be signed off on by the government.
Okay, I guess you're right. Technically. God, you're
Thank you.
so legalistic.
Thank
All
you.
these technicalities. Andrew Clark for $5.
Says thoughts on Shadow House. It's an anime literally about people of Shadow. If you haven't seen it, I recommend it so far. I'm 7 episodes in. I haven't seen it. I haven't even heard anything about it.
Wow, sounds great.
So
Check it
yeah,
out.
so that's interesting.
Chris Jones for $2. Out
Mhm.
here advocating for smut.
The Smoot Hawley Tariff Act.
Oh, what is that?
It's some kind of tariff.
Yeah, Sitch is big into tariffs. He's an isolationist. Gene Angry Penguin for $5.
Oh, I'm an isolationist.
No, he's not. I'm kidding.
I'm not even big into tariffs. My only point was, and this is what's funny too. I wasn't even advocating for it. I'm just saying that people who are whining, who are generally on the right, people who are whining about America being independent on energy, that's fine, but they're not. What they're suggesting doesn't actually get us independent on energy at all. You could drill as much oil as you want in America. That's not going to make America
Drill,
energy
baby,
independent.
drill.
Yeah, that's not going to
There's a
make
flash
America
from the
energy
past,
independent,
isn't it?
And I'm actually kind of shocked at how pathetic the left's counter to that was. Instead of calling that out and saying, "Well, what you're suggesting won't make us energy independent, so you're stupid." But I guess it's not really in their own interest to just suggest that because they don't really want to be on board with that either. So
Gene Angry Penguin for $5. Oil is such a vital component of our ability to maintain our populations that we use it as a global commodity so we don't beat
yeah, I read that one.
each other to death.
Yeah, he could be right. He could be right. So if we did become energy independent, it could actually have some unforeseen consequence of causing a lot more global strife, which is definitely possible.
Well, there's going to be massive global strife when America pulls back and just says, handle your own pirates. We're going to kick back and smoke weed and fuck our waifu robots.
Right. Tavi Tusk for €5 says, "No one wants to pay though. Look at Germany." I assume you're talking about NATO, or are you talking about piracy?
No one wants to
I,
pay the United States military to guard their shipping lanes, is what he means.
well, I think he's talking about NATO, not piracy.
Well,
Um,
nobody wants to pay. Come
yeah,
on.
but see, that was one of the things I approved of Trump doing was him trying to pressure European countries to paying what they agreed to pay NATO.
Trump did something
We should do
good?
that. Yeah, of
Oh,
course.
rare moment of
That was a great thing that he did.
Trump
And
support here.
if Biden has weakened on that, then fuck him. Because everyone should be paying what they agreed to pay, obviously. And if they
Trump
don't, you
had to
start
ruin it.
throwing some penalties at them.
And then Trump had to totally go and ruin it by
He did.
trying to appoint some EPA attorney as attorney
The
general.
Attorney General. Yeah.
Why'd you got to ruin it, Trump? God.
If there's an oil spill that needs defending, we'll call you.
Ostracy for 10. I know.
That's a TV movie line.
Ostracy for 10. Oh, my favorite part was are you going to fire him? Mr. President, I can't fire him. You can fire him.
Yeah, exactly.
That was hilarious.
Talk about passing.
Well,
the buck,
I'm not.
Jesus.
Well, I'm not going to fire him. Okay,
Right.
thank you. Can we adjourn this meeting now?
There was the last maybe it's not the last. There was a hearing today. I haven't listened to it yet.
I know. I haven't. As soon as we get off, I'm gonna. As soon as we get off, as soon as we end this live stream,
As soon as we get off, baby.
I'm gonna listen to it while I
Oh, yeah.
work on the comic.
Dr. Dealer for $2 says, why you stream on Thursday? Stop it. Stop it. Do what we want, Doctor. We do what we want. We're renegades.
Yeah, we almost streamed on Wednesday too, but
We did. Dog Eat Dog for $2 says, will the U.S. even let more countries have nuclear? Not nuclear weapons, but nuclear energy. Hopefully.
I don't. Well, there was. I think back in the 70s, we gave a nuclear power plant to I can't remember who we gave it to. One of these countries, and they tore down the nuclear power plant and made a bomb out of it. And ever since then, we're like, yeah, we can't do. We're not doing that again.
I haven't researched this again, so it takes the grain of salt.
Right.
But I've heard from, I believe from Scott Adams, who simps for nuclear energy more than anyone else I've ever listened to. He says that the newish nuclear model plants, however the technology is, like it's so different from making bombs that they can't actually do that.
That would be perfect, because then we could give nuclear energy to everyone. That'd be awesome. Yeah.
So if that's true, that would be great. I don't know if it's true, but who knows? It would be interesting if we could get the cost of energy super cheap, because I do think that would solve any global warming issues. Because this, he always talks about desalinating water, and you can put water everywhere. So, Texas SP12 for $2 says you should talk to Matt Walsh on this topic. I would love to. I don't think he would talk to us, but
It's Texas P12, but anyway.
Texas SB12. Oh, you're right. I don't know why I always say SB. You're right. Why do I always do that?
Lucifer
Texas
the Doberman.
P12. Lucifer the Doberman for 5 Canadian says, would you get into a hot tub with AOC and Tulsi Gabbard asking for a friend?
Hell yeah.
Yeah, who wouldn't do that?
Of course.
Yeah.
What are you, insane?
Of course. Hell yes.
I mean, I might have forgot my swimsuit, but anyway.
That's the perfect excuse to go in
Yeah, exactly.
birthday suit. White for $5 says U.S. stops policing equals more pirates, makes trade too expensive, trade stops. This is the absolute barest of bones for Zahan's point. Well, I understand that, but I guess my question is, why would the U.S. ever stop policing? That's my question. Why would they stop? They have no incentive or reason to stop, and there's no
Why
political
is the
will for them
United
to
States
stop.
taxpayer subsidizing global trade? Like, it's so...
Because we benefit from it for some extent.
You've
That's
got
why.
one party marching around talking about the globalists, wanting to get rid of all the globalists. It's kind of insane to me that you don't think there'd be political will to stop international trade. Like, made in America is the thing.
Yeah, okay. So when the Republican Party platform has a position of throwing international trade into the wind by not protecting ships against piracy, then I'll believe you when that
Okay.
happens. I don't believe that's going to happen.
Start-
Now they might say, hey, we should start charging people for this service, which If they're not doing it, they obviously should be.
Yeah, let's do it.
And
Stug,
how do we wait? How do we know they're not charging people? This doesn't make any sense to me. Why would if the U.S. military is protecting private businesses, why are they not charging them for this service?
because obviously they spend a bunch of lobbying money and they don't have to pay.
Okay. Well, that should be the thing you
Look,
do. You just
don't you
charge.
remember the
You
bridge
don't
to
even need to charge.
nowhere?
You were saying, and maybe this is my fault. I
This
should
is the
charge
aircraft carrier
But wait,
to
here's
nowhere.
no. Wait, stop. Here's the problem. Okay.
I will not
said
stop. How dare you?
I made a mistake in this conversation by saying they should charge the countries. They shouldn't charge the countries. They should charge the companies that are using these shipping lines for the protection.
Yeah.
That's what they should do.
They're all American companies, so that's why they're like, no, we want a freebie.
A lot of companies that I'm sure do everything they can to not pay taxes.
Of course. Yeah, they set up in Ireland, so
right.
It's a huge tax haven.
Yeah, so fuck them. Fuck these free-riding, rent-seeking pieces of shit. Now maybe they are, but if they're not paying for this sort of protection.
Did you know that Ireland at one time was the largest holder of United States treasuries because Apple incorporated there to avoid taxes?
Yes. Right.
Isn't that crazy?
That's disgusting that we allow that to go on.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it is totally crazy that we just allow this nonsense.
We're an Irish-based company now.
We let all these companies pretend to not be American companies so they can avoid paying taxes.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing.
I don't think we should be charging corporations taxes anyway. I think you should charge the people taxes, not the companies.
No, that's a terrible idea.
Most economists are in favor of that.
That would, well, let me think about that. No, that would actually make wages go down substantially.
Good. Wages are too high right now. They're causing inflation.
That's actually a terrible idea, but that's another conversation.
Stug for $5. Oh.
But wait a minute. You asked a question about the Republican Party getting on board with not protecting shipping lines.
I didn't ask any questions.
I'll believe that when the Republican Party gets on board with preventing American companies from from pretending that they're overseas companies so they don't have to pay taxes, which I don't see ever happening. So.
I think the Republican Party's officially gotten out of bed with big business. I think they're
No, they have. That's not true though. They haven't. They've gotten out of They've gotten out of bed with big businesses that they don't like politically, like the tech businesses.
Right.
But they're not out of it enough.
Like them.
Well, here you go. Okay, here's your perfect political campaign issue. Why isn't Ted Cruz or whoever Republican wants to run for president, why aren't they pushing to start hitting Google with massive tax penalties for hiding their finances overseas? Why aren't they doing any of
that? Because Ted Cruz is a big piece of shit.
Okay, well, I'm just saying, there's free money on the table. There's free money on the table right there. It's a Republican politician saying that they're going to go after Google's taxes because the Republicans hate fucking Google. They hate Facebook. They hate all these tech companies. There's free money right on the table, just waiting for a Republican to snatch it or a Democrat to snatch it because they can maybe get some Republicans on board with that. And no one's doing it. So I'm just skeptical. I'm skeptical that's going to happen. Stuck for $5 says, that's the thing to me. Neither this lady nor John clearly have any clue what they're talking about, but John is being lefty smug and thus has won. Yeah, unfortunately, that's how most people will perceive the conversation. So, yeah. The Justice 35 for $10 says, Sitch is almost right. Well, listen, I strive for being almost right. It was actually the cost of the French-Indian War that forced the Brits to tax the colonies in order to pay for the war to protect the colonies. S-class is still best class. Well, it was that. That's true. It was to protect the colonies. But the counter side of that is from the French-Indian War that the U.S. gained a bunch of access to a bunch of new land that was filled with pissed off Indians that
Indians.
Bing,
ding, 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 ding. Someone committed a microaggression.
Actually, a lot of Native American tribes prefer to be called Indians. It's very complicated.
Oh, they do?
Each one has a different name that they want to be called by. So
oh, really?
It's kind of a big mess. But yeah, no. So it was a French Indian War and the cost of that. But then the aftermath of that was the cost to defend the territory won via the French Indian War. So, or not won necessarily, but that they had access to.
I lost my spot. The Justice 35.
Verngetorex for $5 says, we need gender clinics the same way the right wants family care centers rather than Planned Parenthood style of corralling people into a procedure. There you go.
Right.
Whoop, I lost my place. Joe the Make for $5 says, Adam, this is who Jon Stewart has always been. He is just shielded by the easy layup of George Bush bad. I think you're correct.
Yeah, and I might have fallen for that when I was in the progressive bubble. The progressive bubble.
Casey Anderson for $5 says, if you search the problem with Jon Stewart behind the scenes, it literally shows you just how ridiculous his writing team is. He's surrounded by ideologues. Yeah,
we have watched that. Yeah.
When we did a previous John stream, I think it was a CRT one. We did previous John Stewart stream. We watched the behind the scenes and we saw his writing staff was just all super duper woke as fuck.
Yeah.
Like young kids. So bunch of woke millennials. Yeah. Zug for $2 says, buckle up, buckaroos. There you go.
All right.
Gosh dang for $5 says, quote, parents have lost kids to suicide because of depression that they can't transition, end quote. Then let's not teach them trans ideology.
Right.
What's the problem? Is you have to sort of, if you're going to do it correctly, you got to distinguish between the people that actually maybe have it and the people that are just being sucked into trans ideology. So, and the people that just have depression and anxiety, and they just mistakenly think it's something to do with some trans issue because that's what everyone's talking about nowadays.
Yeah.
And it was interesting because, you had you posted some article or something on or a study on Twitter.
Yeah.
And what's her name?
Kathy.
I forget her. What's her last name? Kathy what?
I can't remember.
Well, anyway, yes. This lady was like, Adam, this study shows that trans rates have gone down. So it's not social contagion. That's not real. And then I said, well, wait a minute. If you actually look at the numbers, it shows that even though the number of kids identifying as trans went down in this one study over the years, it shows that percentage-wise, the roles completely reversed, where the number of women identifying as trans increased by 9 points, and the number of boys that were identifying as trans decreased by 9 points.
Right.
And that would totally fit with the social contagion idea and model. Because the women, as I read earlier, women were supposed to be so much less than men in terms of having gender dysphoria.
Yeah.
Andrew Clark for $2. Oh, yeah, that was the Piracy Cost Global Shipping. Jack H, thanks so much for being Freedom Seeker for 4 months, says, Adam, quote, look at me. Look at me. I am the best class now.
Oh, no. What? No. Jack H, we'll win you back.
That's funny.
There's plenty of time.
Now, he was saying that's what you would say. You would be like, look at me, Sitch. I am the best class now.
Okay, that's true.
Meant.
Well, that is true.
Loser Doman for 5 Canadian says, it's impossible to find a dollar amount for how much they spend on piracy. You know this, Sitch. Stop being dishonest.
Oh.
That's such a... Well, first of all, I know Lucifer, being a dog, has his tongue forever up the A-team ass, so I understand where he's coming from. Why would
Lucifer's a good A-teamer, okay? Don't disparage.
Okay. First of all, why would you think it's impossible to find the dollar amount of how much, an estimated dollar amount that the Navy spends to fight piracy? Why would you think that's impossible to find?
All of the money they spend is fighting piracy, though. You got to understand.
You know that's not true. I know you're just joking.
Well,
but someone like Lucifer, who doesn't know that because he's a dog and doesn't understand complex human thoughts, doesn't know that you're
What do you think the job of the military is? Patrolling shipping lanes. Like, that's 90% of what they do.
You think that's literally the only thing the Navy does is patrol shipping lanes? Okay. You literally honestly think 100% of the Navy's budget goes to patrolling shipping lane?
Yes.
Okay, I don't know how to react to this.
Well,
you're so wrong.
What else is there to do in the Navy besides patrolling shipping lanes?
You're right. That's all they do. That's all the Navy does. They just patrol the shipping lanes.
What is out when America is not at war?
Yeah.
When was the last time we were at war at sea? 1,000 years ago? Like.
What are you talking about? You understand? Wait, every war that we have, they have aircraft carriers. They have all sorts of. The Navy's doing all sorts of shit. What are you talking about?
Yeah, but those planes can't fly forever. Like
I know they have to. Right, they have to park the big boats off of the closest water placed to wherever they need the bomb so that the planes can fly from there.
Right, but
There's no ground base. What are you talking about?
we were not able to do that in Iraq. That's why we had to establish land bases there.
Well,
so
right,
we
that's because
could-
Iraq's in the middle of like
yeah,
so far away.
obviously,
Yeah, sure.
obviously. So while the whole time we're in Iraq, what do our boats do aside from patrol shipping lanes?
Mhm.
Especially
How
shipping,
much
especially
the
shipping lanes that are
Navy-
getting our stuff back and forth to the military, the supply lines.
So you're just consulting your gut for something that I think is completely insane, but that's fine.
No, I've read Zahan. I know all this stuff.
How much of the Navy's budget goes to fighting piracy? First of all, I think it's crazy.
All of it.
But before we even go to, I think that's crazy. But I think it's crazier now. Maybe because Lucifer the Doberman, Luberman is a weird Canadian, and maybe I don't know. Maybe he thinks maybe in Canada
Look,
land things are like impossible to find.
Canada
But-
doesn't have any military.
Right, exactly. So maybe he doesn't understand. But the idea that that information doesn't exist, to me, is ridiculous.
How?
Obviously, there are a million reports that are compiled that explain how much the cost is for the Navy to fight pirates. And I would be shocked if none of those reports have ever made it out into the light of day. So,
Oh, I love this. Hilarious. I Googled how many aircraft carriers does Canada have? You want to take a guess?
0.
0. You guessed correctly.
Get
Canada, you need to. France even has 1 aircraft carrier. Jesus, get your shit together.
Mm-hmm.
Canada does have 3 aircraft carriers that are decommissioned. So
Oh,
at
who
one
cares? They're
time,
decommissioned.
at
Yeah.
one time, Canada knew what they were up to. But
Right.
look, you might have to dust off those 3 dusty old aircraft carriers once the U.S. comes home. Canada, don't think we're going to protect your shit forever.
Let's see.
Yeah, are we almost done?
Well-
Come on, I got work to do.
Someone find the answer to the question. That's the chat's homework assignment.
Leave it in the comments.
Somebody find the answer to the question of how much the Navy spends on fighting piracy, and then DM it to me and Adam.
Leave it
on
in
Twitter.
the comments. I still read all the comments. Guys.
That's your guys' homework assignment. Wait, Andrew Clark sent me a bunch of things. Oh, this is not relevant.
Skylar Fiction tried to leave a comment on our video and I banned him. I did a rare banning just because it was Skylar.
I saw that he
Fiction.
DM'd me. He said I was blocked from your YouTube channel.
I blocked his ass. Yeah, I did. 'Cause
Why
he-
did you block Skylar? You can't
He
block.
came
Oh,
into
no.
he came into
Don't
the
block
comments
Skylar.
just trying to start. I
Don't block Skylar.
I did it because it would be funny more than anything.
I know, and it is funny, but unblock him. I mean, if he was on and we were talking about him, it's it's only fair. that
I
he
mean,
can respond
Skylar's
to him.
kind of a piece of shit. Do we really want him in
Yes.
our comment section?
Yes. Listen, when we ban someone, it has to be a joint decision. Okay, either
What?
one of us can veto the other.
Oh yeah, that's
Of course.
That's that's guaranteed. But
So allow Skylar back.
okay,
on.
I'll unban him if I remember. If I remember,
Yeah. Okay. That means you're not going to do it. I'm gonna have to go do it.
that's okay. You can do it. I don't
Mhm.
care.
hmm
What a piece of shit. I can't remember what comment it was, but it was like laughably biased.
Lucifer says he does inspections of the Canadian Pacific Navy. So you do inspections of nothing?
What?
Is that what you're saying, Lucifer?
Really? Lucifer lives on some island or something. He's always texting. He's always messaging
right.
pictures of like waterfowl and stuff. It looks like a beautiful place where he lives. So
Mm.
when you say inspections, is this like you get your binoculars out and like look across the ocean?
This is I understand where he's coming from because he does inspections of the Canadian Navy's ships, and it's just like a bunch of rowboats. It's a bunch of moose. It's a bunch of moose like sitting on like floatable rafts. And so he's like he doesn't understand what I'm talking about. But,
Right. Yeah. Just go see Top Gun. You'll see what we're dealing with over here in America.
So someone said that the overall budget for the U.S. Navy was $180 billion.
Mhm.
And so you say, okay, well, how much of that goes to fighting piracy?
All of it. I keep telling you all of it, but
how would 180 billion dollars go to fighting piracy when only $9 billion is lost to piracy a year? That doesn't make any sense.
Listen,
Yeah.
you're spending the 180 billion to fight piracy, and 9 billion still happens. What do
Yeah,
you
I
think
understand
happens
that.
when you don't spend
Oh,
the
okay.
180
Well,
billion?
then you're saying it's a good investment because it'd be like some astronomical amount of piracy.
Right.
Right.
But how much is stopping United States piracy and how much is stopping the rest of the world piracy? Like, we're basically paying for the piracy that would happen between Turkey and France. Like, why the fuck is the American taxpayer paying for the to avoid piracy between Turkey and France?
Well, because they
Anyone?
wouldn't be. It would
Anyone?
be, yeah, it'd be in
Anyone?
places that affect America.
Anyone? Anyone?
Hello?
Bueller?
Are you talking to yourself? What's happening
Bueller?
here?
I'm just trying to get through so I can get back to work. Come on.
Okay.
We just clicked to 3 hours.
Well, you're the one that keeps making this argument. Again,
You're
and
the
again,
one that
again,
keeps
again,
Googling,
again.
trying to prove everyone wrong when it's just.
Oh,
it's
excuse me. Wait. You're like, Sitch, stop making arguments based on your intuition. So I'm like, okay, let me go find the actual information. And you're like, Sitch, stop
Yeah, but you could
spending time trying to find the
this
actual
on your
information.
own. You could do this on your own
Oh,
time, though.
okay.
Like,
Okay.
bring it back when you got the goods.
Mm.
Come on, let's go back to criticizing Canada's worthless navy.
There you go. A bunch of moose swim around on like they put the water wings on the moose legs.
Mm-hmm.
They just kind of like paddle around in the water.
JV Shada for 20 Canadian. Thank you so much. That's a very generous super chat from our Canadian brothers, especially after we did so much insulting Canada. But idea for the
skip something.
Oh
no, JV. Oh no, you didn't. Okay,
JV Shada. Yeah, you go ahead.
Idea for the show. Sitch should randomly kick his nemesis Doomer whenever he's on the show. And Adam should randomly kick his nemesis Aiden Paladin whenever she's on the show. It's not a comedy show without a running gag. There you go.
I mean, we kind of do that already, so.
Well, Doomer does this weird, very antisocial thing where he'll just come on and then he'll just randomly leave while you're in the middle of talking to him about something.
Yeah, he does that a lot.
He's very strange, very strange bird.
It does avoid long goodbyes, so that's kind of cool.
Yeah, but he could just say like, "Okay, I gotta go," and then leaves.
Right.
He just like literally sneaks out of the room like a weirdo.
Actually, Doomer, if you're listening, it would be funnier if you said something like, "Oh, one more thing," and then left.
Yeah, right.
If you were in the middle of telling us something,
or like what, and then it's just
left, and then you're gone. That's
true.
That is the way to pull that joke off, right there.
That's true.
Oh, let me tell you one more thing about Canadian shipping lanes. And then gone. Goricero for $2. Adam, what's the Zahem book you're referencing? Okay, I've read Disunited Nations, A Scramble for Power in an Ungoverned World. That's the book that I've read. He's got a new book out that I haven't read, but he's been doing a bunch of talks that I've listened to. It's called The End of the World is Just the Beginning, Mapping the Collapse of Globalization. So there you have it. Sitch obviously thinks he's just a trouble starter.
Well, no, Hayden Dill actually maybe did the homework. He sent me a paper that's all about trying to estimate the cost of piracy by
Hayden
NATO.
Dill?
Yes, so good job,
okay.
Hayden Dill.
Yeah, of course they're studying it because they're like, if the U.S., when Trump was in office, this is one of his issues that he kept telling them NATO has to pay us more money. So I'm sure they probably did a bunch of studies going, what we're going to have to pay for what we've been getting for free for 30 years, 50 years, however long it's been.
So let's see. According to the Oceans Beyond Piracy report, let's go find that. The economic cost of Somali piracy in 2012 wasn't 2012, but what's the best we got? Somali piracy continued to inflict some $6 billion in global costs in 2012, of which $1 billion was borne by the counter-piracy military operations. The report further calculates that NATO's Operation Ocean Shield cost the alliance $5.7 million in annual administrative costs. Um, Ocean Shield is calculated to be approximately 75 million. So okay, but well, does that mean that it costs NATO 1.9 billion? Does that mean it costs the world 1.9 billion, or does that mean it costs America 1.9 billion? Because either way, that's a small fraction of the Navy's budget.
I mean,
So
what was the movie? The Pirates of Somali? Is that what it's
the
called?
movie is called I Am the Captain Now.
Captain Phillips. That's the movie.
The movie
I
is
mean,
called I Am the Captain Now.
did you not see the movie Captain Phillips?
I saw the
How do you not
scene where
know
he
this
says, "Look
shit?
at me, I am the captain now."
How do you not know this?
I
Like,
saw the scene, Adam. He says he looks dead into the windows of the souls of the eyes of Forrest Gump, and he says, "Look at me, I am the captain now."
like if Hollywood is stepping into this shit,
Yes.
like you know, it's already gone mainstream. Okay,
He said,
everyone's doing it.
he said, "Look at me." He said, "Look at me. I am the cost of international shipping now."
Yeah, yeah,
That's what he
exactly.
said. Yeah, that's crazy. I couldn't believe he said that. I was like, that's a little too on the nose, Hollywood. Okay.
Look, you carjack one of these ships and you basically just get ransom for it. That's what they're doing.
Mm. So anyway, thank you, Hayden, for sending me that
Yeah.
that best.
Thank you for prolonging my agony for that much
Uh
longer.
Harrison Cox says he sent me a tweet that says the Department of Navy spends 89% of its budget on piracy. So that would go along with what you were saying.
Really?
Let's see if it's
Say
actually
that.
true.
Say that one more time. Can you repeat that
Piracy.
statistics to me? Can you repeat that to me one more time, John Stewart? John
Uh,
Stewart, can you tell me one more time what you just read there?
Wait a minute. Where in this link does it talk about piracy?
One more time. 90%, did you say?
I think this is fake news.
Speak up a bit when you're proving me right.
I think I'm proving you wrong though, because I'm looking at the actual link he sent me, and I don't see it even saying anything about piracy at all. Where did you get that? Where did you get that idea from, Harrison? From what you sent me? This just talks about it has like it's a big chart of the budget, but it just says like operational expense, military personnel, research and development, infrastructure, procurement. Where does it say anything about
All right.
piracy?
Okay, I already read Gorosero. Andrew Clark for $2. Wait, what is Twitter Birdwatch? I don't know. I've never heard of that.
Wait,
Rich Jammer for 125.
wait.
Some other type of dollar. I am definitely brainwashed. A team is best team, but I feel like
that is a
my
brainwash.
2000s brainwashing is conflicting with my current brainwashing. You know that sometimes happens, Rich Jammer.
It does.
I'm not
It
going to
does.
lie to you. Sometimes one washing of the brain is not enough. You need to multiple wash that brain.
Twitter Birdwatch is a community-based approach to misinformation.
Oh,
Birdwatch allows people to identify information in tweets they believe is misleading and write a note that provides informative context.
oh, sweet, great. I'm
There
going to
you
get
go.
right on that.
It says it
Sword,
was implemented last year. I don't
I
remember seeing
see
a
it.
tweet that had that.
I saw one just the other day. Someone
Really?
tweeted
Mm-hmm.
a fake screenshot of one of Elon Musk's tweets, and it was fake, and it had a little note attached to it saying that it was fake and encouraging me to weigh in on whether or not that was accurate. But I didn't. I just assumed it looked fake to me, so I was just like moved on.
Oh, wait a minute. I understand what Harrison was saying. He wasn't saying you were wrong. He was actually saying you were. I mean, he was saying that he wasn't saying you were right. He was saying that you were wrong in a somewhat cheeky way.
Mm-hmm.
Because he said if you look at the Navy's budget and 11% is spent on research and development, obviously 100% of it couldn't be spent on fighting pirates. So he's saying at best, only 89% of it could be spent on pirates. Okay, I understand what you're saying.
Okay, well, damn you!
So good
How
job.
dare you?
Okay.
What?
I understand.
What?
That's funny.
If the research and development budget is better ways to fight piracy, though?
There you go.
Checkmate.
There you go. There you go. That's what it could all just be to fight the
Check
pirates.
fucking mate.
Got him. Got him.
Swords and Song for $5. Adam, Chud Logic's in California right now. You guys should see if you can meet up for some IRL content. Well, I mean, I don't really know Chud Logic, so I
Yeah, we
mean,
talked to him that one time. But
is he gonna rape me or try to like
bring a whistle.
try to like date rape me or something? Is he gonna slip me a Riponol?
I mean, he
I
looks
don't
a
know.
little.
His name is Chud Logic.
He looks a little sus. He looks a little sus.
I don't know.
So.
No, I don't want to throw shade at Chud Logic. He seems to be
Right.
a bright YouTuber and a smart guy, someone I'd probably get along with. So
Right.
I'm just joking around, Chud. Yeah, I don't know. Message me or whatever. I'm sort of busy though, and
That's true.
sometimes people reach out and want to hang out with me, and I'm like, I don't really have time. So draw sir for £5 says,
Yeah.
I am the highest ranking human in the U.S. Navy. Adam is right. Bitch. Yeah. Look at that. Look at
There
that.
you go.
Look,
I didn't know we had
do
the
not-
highest ranking member of the U.S. Navy was a fan of our
Drosser.
broadcast.
Do not argue with Drosser, okay? Jeez.
But so who is the
Just
highest ranked person
Say-
in the Navy?
I hope you're 18, by the way. Since you're in the Navy. I
Who
can't imagine
runs
what.
the Navy. We can dox them now.
Do you know what they're doing?
Oh wow, that's okay. So Drakcher is the current chief of naval operations, Admiral Michael M. Gilday.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Admiral Gilday.
Yeah. And thank you also for super chatting in British pounds. Like
He's across the narrow sea. Okay,
you must be stationed in Great Britain.
he's stationed in exactly. He's fighting the pirates in Britbong land. Okay.
Martin Cordy for $2 says, I like you guys, but rarely watch live. Well, thank you for watching
Martin.
live today. Yeah.
Thank you.
The live streams do hold up on playback. I know I try to remember what Sitch was saying or something like that, and I'll go back to one trying to find that particular part, and I just end up listening to like way more than I should. So Milkman Dan for $5 Aussie says, I think I met my future wife the other night.
Wow.
She wants to have many babies. She could
Based.
also be a dude, so of days to come.
Wait a minute. How did that happen?
Go AS. Well, go A and SS. Wow. So this is really the true crime of the trans activist movement. I mean, I feel for these ladies because there are a lot of, women born female, assigned female at birth, and biological females. They look a little masculine. They do. This was a very popular look for women back in like the 80s. This was like a popular look. The Grace Jones, tomboy, masculine looking female. That was a super attractive thing. But nowadays you always think, this lady's probably trans. This lady was probably a man. Right?
Well, there you go.
Do
I
you-
guess
do you
that's
think
the thought, yeah. I mean, I don't think that, but I guess it's a thing to be worried about. Sure.
Well, worried. I mean, what are you, a bigot? I mean, like worried about it?
I'd be a little worried about it. What do you mean?
A little nervous? Well, I mean, if it's a Keffels type, because Keffels is like, yeah, I fuck people all the time and I never tell them.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
It's like, oh, okay.
Oh, that's a little, I mean, I would feel obligated to say something if I was born a woman and transitioned. So Andrew Clark for $2. Looks like only 5th Fleet fight pirates. What? Andrew, why you got to super chat that? We're in the midst of a heated argument. And I'm assuming there's more. If it's the 5th fleet, I'm assuming there's at least 4 more fleets.
Oh,
damn it!
Destroyed. Do you know how many fleets there are in the U.S. Navy, Adam?
let's Osprey for $5.
7. There's 7 active fleets.
Oh well,
Destroy.
that's not as bad.
Yeah,
At
but
least
that
it
means
wasn't
that-
like
There you
30.
go. So only 1/7% could go to, or 1/7 goes
Well,
to
the Fifth
fighting
Fleet
pirates.
could be the biggest fleet, though.
Oh,
Obviously,
of
the other
course,
ones.
of course.
Look, there's probably a Special
Of course.
Forces fleet that
Mhm.
that
Yeah,
barely
mhm.
leaves ever,
Yeah,
right?
okay.
They just do the Osama bin Laden thing every once in a while. That's the sound of cope right there. You're hearing. That is what cope personified sounds like, guys. Just FYI.
No, what you're saying right now sounds like cope.
No.
personified.
No, what I'm saying. I'm just
You're
trying
like,
to.
nah.
I'm just trying to read. I'm just trying to read the super chats, man.
I'm just trying to move on.
I'm
Oh
just
my
trying to read
God.
the super chats. Okay. Osprey for $5. All caught up. You guys talk so slow when it's not at 2x. Osprey's a very smart man or woman, because listening at 2x is definitely the way to go.
It's always weird when you're like, because I had that same thing. You're listening to someone catch up super fast,
And then everyone sounds drunk. You're
and you're
immediately,
like,
oh
holy
shit.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because like this is how your brain tricks you. Because at first, you're like, wow, these guys are talking so fast, you can barely like process it. But after listening to that for like 5 minutes or so, it
You're
becomes normal.
acclimated.
Yeah, you acclimate. And then when you hear it normal, you're like, holy shit, it's like crazy.
And we sound a lot smarter. Oh, it's way better.
Mm.
Yeah. Good Emperor, a member for 4 months.
Thanks so much, Good Emperor. Says a little masculine in a woman is super hot, actually.
I agree. I agree. Yeah.
Them tomboy abs.
I agree. Yeah. Yep. But you're always wondering. You're always second guessing. Not too masculine. I mean, not too, not overly masculine. If you catch my drift.
Janos Kuhn for $10. Thank you, Janos. Says, hey now, Adam, your view on morality in philosophical terms would be a cognitive version of ethical subjectivism. It's called ideal observer theory, the same ideology as David Hume and Adam Smith. There's a modern version by Roderick Firth.
Well, I'm in good company then if it's David Hume. I like that.
Well, check it out, because you were saying, I wonder if there's probably some name of whatever you're talking about.
What's it called again? I'll look it up.
Ideal observer theory.
Ideal observer theory. All right. I did do a bunch of reading on objective morality after our talk, and I found a blog post by Richard Carrier that's pretty good.
Ideal observer theory is a medical ethical view which claims that ethical sentences express truth propositions about attitudes of a hypothetical ideal observer. In other words, the ideal observer theory states that ethical judgments should be interpreted as statements about the judgments that a neutral and fully informed observer would make. That's too confusing for me to understand, but okay. You can look into that.
I'll check it out.
Stug for $2 says, Zahan's argument seems to be that as more countries become stable democracies, the need for shipping protection by the U.S. will go down. Why would we stop protecting trade routes rather than just spend less? That's good. Well, okay. I mean, I don't know. That makes more sense to me. But wait, so would it be that would the idea be that as more countries become stable democracies, they become more self-reliant and thus require less things from America?
Well, not only that, the cheap labor evaporates, so it doesn't make a lot of sense to outsource.
Okay, but that's interesting, because then,
I literally said this when we had our conversation about this. When you were like, "No,
I don't think you said this. You didn't say any of this."
Roll the tape back. I said that exact same thing.
This is an actual argument.
You could have brought forward in the very beginning when I first laid out the argument. I said that. Yeah. I literally said that once these third world countries become first world countries, the outsourcing becomes not as feasible.
Well, why didn't you just say that again? Because obviously I didn't hear that part of the conversation.
Yeah, because you were like I was
probably reading something.
Nah, you were in full trigger
You should
mode.
just. Well, no, you don't even know how to argue the position that you were advocating for. That's all you had to say. I kept saying, why would America do this? And you just kept not giving it an answer. And you should have said, well, it's because it wouldn't be necessary, because we wouldn't be shipping so much, these countries would be self-reliant. And I would say, oh, maybe.
Oh, okay.
I think we're far away now. I think we're far away from that situation where, all the third world countries are first world countries. I think we're pretty far from that. But I mean, it's a possibility. And then
I'm gonna
obviously
read this book. Is it?
shipping, shipping would go down, and piracy would obviously go down because it'd be less the pirates. Well,
I'm,
actually, I would hope that if like these countries that produce pirates became first world countries, they would stop producing pirates, right?
I'm reading. I'm getting the Zahem book right now. So
So
next
when
Tuesday, I'm
so
just telling
okay,
you, I'm gonna be completely insufferable.
you tell me. I'm ready for it.
I
So
will be.
I'm gonna laugh if you misunderstood his argument.
Everyone in the chat is completely confirming that I got his argument.
Okay.
We're all just dumbfounded that Sitch is like
Uh-huh.
Sitch with any
Mm.
new ideas is like no, no,
Oh, that's true. That's true. I've never agreed to any no idea ever.
no,
Ever. So
no.
right. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Okay. Magor for $2 says in a screeching voice, "When will you learn? When will you learn that Adam hates philosophers?"
Well, I not no. I like philosophy.
There you go. In all seriousness, no, philosophical talk is just gibberish to me. It seems to be inventing fancy words for made-up categories. Me too.
Well,
Me too.
I think philosophy is very much kind of like grammar for thinking.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, how important is grammar? I mean, it's kind of not really that important when it comes to storytelling.
Death by Sloth for $2 says the promises being made to people with gender dysphoria makes it seem that medication and surgery can remake a human being at the same level of technology advancement as 4K to vacuum tube televisions. We can't even solve diabetes.
Yeah.
That's true. That is true. I don't think there is informed consent on a lot of transitioning at all.
There's this thing in psychology called optimism bias. Have you ever heard of that, Sitch?
Yes, I
There's
know
so
about
many things in psychology that explain this. It's so ironic to me that the psychologists are the ones that are falling for all this garbage.
Yep. Well, and it's so much too because like I forget who it was. There was someone who was talking about how, they used to watch a lot of trans YouTubers,
Mm-hmm.
and there's an element to transitioning that's it's starting to be talked about now, but it wasn't talked about a lot at first, which is that, some people think, oh, you just get, hormone blockers and you just get cross-sex hormones, and then maybe you get, like top or bottom surgery. And it's like, no, for a lot of like especially a lot of the rich trans people, they have all sorts of facial surgeries.
Yep.
There's so much facial surgeries that some of them have to go through. Especially, it's really for men to look more like women than for women to look more like men. That there's a bunch of facial surgeries they have to go through for most men transition to women, and I think a lot of people don't realize that going into it. So there was an interesting tweet that Matthew Iglesias, I think, put out, um, which I didn't. It's true. I didn't even think about it. He's saying we're closer. We're going to live in a world, Adam.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to live in a world where you could sit down at a computer and you could talk to a deep fake of Scarlett Johansson that has her
Really?
face and her voice.
Sweet.
And you'll be able to have a conversation with the computer that's indistinguishable from having a conversation with a human being.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to have that technology before we have the technology for a robot to go into a kitchen and make you a turkey sandwich. Isn't that
Wow.
insane? Isn't that fucking insane?
Yeah, because the robotics is what's lagging behind, though.
Well, no, it's not the robotics. It's the ability to move in physical space. That's the issue. Like you can program a robot to move a set course, but having it be able to like putting a robot in a new environment and like learning how to navigate it the way a person does, we're not close to that yet.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because like if you would have asked people that 10 years ago, what do you think is going to come first? A robot can walk into your kitchen and make you a sandwich, or you can basically have a conversation with an artificial life form on your computer and think it's a person. everyone would think that the robot going in the kitchen to make the turkey sandwich would have come first because it seems like the simpler thing to do, but it's actually like way more complicated.
It would have been wrong.
I know. But that's why I don't like when a lot of these people, these futurist people, make these predictions about future technology. Because I feel like it's just all the things that you intuitively think will happen seem to not happen when it comes to future technology and stuff.
Are you talking about this because I brought up optimism bias?
No, I got it from the tweet when he was talking about like the 4K to the vacuum tubes and stuff.
Yeah, it's true.
So I just think it's that's why I'm always so hesitant when the futurist types talk about like we're gonna have all this technology. It's like, are we? Are we though?
Yep, we are.
No one predicted the internet, but they predicted all sorts of other weird technologies that we don't have.
No one predicted
So
Captain Phillips,
that's true.
but the Navy did.
Anyways,
That's it? All right. Woohoo. Thank you, guys. Thanks for coming. Thanks for being cool. Thanks for all your generous donations. Thank you, Sitch, for being open to possibly changing your mind on a few things.
thank you all for coming. Thank you all for your incredibly generous donations. Thank you, the true heroes who made it to the end of the stream. And hopefully some of you will be able to fight the power, fight the conditioning, and fight the brainwashing and become true humans.
Yep.
And we'll see you all next week.
Team Human. Bye-bye.
Team Human.